This is the City Council regular meeting for January 17th, and we're going to start with the roll call. City Clerk.
Councilmember Graham Mejia.
Here.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Poe.
Present.
Mayor Edgar.
Here. Next up, I'm going to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Stevens, and stay standing for the invocation this evening by Councilmember Kusamoto.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. O great Spirit in the sky, we just ask you look down upon us in these proceedings as we do the business of the cities. Lord, we just ask that you look after the men and women that wear the American flag on their uniforms as they serve and protect us. And again, just be with us in these proceedings that we have. In your great name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. This evening on presentations, we have two presentations. We're going to start out, first of all, with the presentation of certificates of appreciation to the Los Alamitos High School volleyball team for winning the 2011 CIF Division I champions. And then we're going to go with, And then when that's done this evening, then we're going to move over, and we've got one of our own here locally, Colonel Toy from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is going to be here, and we're going to welcome him and get an overview with him. So if I can I ask the council to join me up front as we acknowledge the girls' volleyball team. This is a great evening tonight for us because we've had another successful sports success, another one for Los Alamitos, and another thing to be proud of there. What I'd like to do is I'd like to read just the front of the first certificate, and then I'd like to call each member of the volleyball team that may be here tonight. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of them, but and the coaches, and allow the coach to say a couple things on their behalf. But let me read this to you. We're going to be recognizing this Los Alamitos girls volleyball team with a season record of 37-3, placing first at the GAR tournament, second in Las Vegas Durango tournament, first in the David Mose tournament, and runner-up at 2011 CIF Southern California Regional, and most of all, winning the 2011 CIF Division I championship. So with that, what I'd like to do is we're going to call up each of the players and the coaches, and we're going to start. I'll just start with the one that I have, and then I'm going to move to Warren and let him call up the next ones. I've got Elijah Gonzalez, not here.
Okay, Haley Lanford, Callie Taylor, Justine Wong Orantes, Amy Armstrong. All right.
Okay, and stay up here. Okay. Rachel Fatal? No. Geneva Crossley? Lindsay Lawmaster? Jaylene Villanueva? Oh, thank you. Jojo Schnabel. Oh, did I say it right? Oh, Courtney Crosby. She's challenging me now that I have my glasses on.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I have to
Christina Maeta.
All right.
Yay. Oh, they're all so tall.
Nice.
I'm vertically challenged. Corey Hunt.
All right. Haley Beimer. Bima? Bama? No. All right. Shelby Burney? Nope. Jones Chrissy? Sydney Bima? This is the last, I think.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Coach David Hubbard? It's an easy one for me. Coach Tina Stevens? Not here. Coach Mike Whitcomb? They better be playing tonight.
They're doing homework.
Wow. Coach Rob Kidjawisky? Kidjawisky? We're gonna swing with that? Okay. Not here?
Good job.
All right.
Sorry, a lot of the girls couldn't be here. They practice year-round with their club teams. So we just want to thank everybody for the recognition and the support that we received from the community all year. These girls worked extremely hard, and they definitely gave the community something to be proud of.
And everybody who's really tall should one more for everybody to play.
Alrighty.
Could I just say
Sure.
something?
Sure.
You know, he said that the girls did bring a lot of inspiration to the community. It was just so fun to follow their progress, and what a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Great. Next up, we're going to start, we're going to go through and introduce to the community Colonel Mark Toy, and just a little bit information about Colonel Toy. Stationed in downtown LA, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He's going to do a much better job on his bio, but from a personal perspective, I've just had the honor of working with Colonel Toy on a couple different projects in the city and with the Orange County Sanitation District. If you drive down the 91 freeway, you'll notice a lot of construction going through the middle from Prado Dam to the Sanitation District, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer group bringing federal money and assistance with county money and district money is putting about an $80 million pipeline down the middle to protect the taxpayers from potential flood and bringing waste in from the Inland Empire to be treated at the sanitation district. One kind of unique thing about Colonel Toy that I would also share is he's also a resident right across the street in Rossmoor. So we're coming across a lot of different events, a lot of different activities we've been working on. I said, you know, we need to get you over and talk to the council and give us an idea of kind of some of the stuff going on with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Also, you know, with Lieutenant Colonel Russell on the base, who's the base commander, and now Colonel Toy. You've got the Colonel Toy on the federal side with the Army, and you've got Lieutenant Colonel Russell on the state side with all the activity that's going on in the base over there. And I think that we've got a great partnership at this point. And what I've been trying to do is motivate Colonel Toy to move the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers headquarters from downtown L.A., where they pay a tremendous amount of rent and have bad parking, to move that operation here to the base. So with that and no pressure, Colonel Toy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. It's an incredible honor for me to be here tonight to address the council. I want to thank you, Mayor Edgar, for facilitating this process. I told my family members, I said, you know, Dad travels all the time, and if this is the one time that you might be able to see what he does, so I made him get in the car, and they're in the front row here, much to their chagrin for my kids. But if I can't introduce my wife, May, my son, Brandon, and my daughter, Kayla. Brandon, he's a sophomore at Los Alamitos High School, and Kayla's an 8th grader at McAuliffe Middle School. So
Great.
we're really happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
As Mayor Edgar said, I am a local boy. One of the great things about being in the Army, or one of the bad things about being in the Army, is you never get to decide where you want to go. So I grew up locally, though. I grew up in Huntington Beach, California, and I went to Marina High School, graduated from there in 1983, and accepted a nomination from Congressman Dan Lundgren to attend West Point.
Wow.
Graduated in 1987, and I've been serving in the Army for over 25 years. So after all this time, to be able to come back to California and the only active duty billet for an engineer colonel, it's really a dream come true for me to be back here. And my wife and I have been through about 13 moves,
Cool.
numerous times. Kids have been through numerous schools. So for us, what drove us to where we were going to live was most importantly the community that we were going to belong to and the schools that my kids were going to be in. And so May, who's in charge of all of that, whittled it down and it very closely. And by a long shot, it was Los Alamitos that we were going to have our family, where we were going to trust. I had to make sure that later on, when my kids graduate, they would not live with me. So we wanted to make sure that they were in a good school district, and that's Los Alamitos High. So it's just an incredible pleasure for us to be here this far into my career and be part of the Los Alamitos community. And so we really feel like we're a part of that. But we're here today to talk about the Corps of Engineers, most importantly to talk about the partnership that could potentially exist between the Corps and Los Alamitos. So what I want to give you very quickly, I know in the 10 minutes I have here, is a USACE 101 to talk about the organization that I run and what we do for the nation. Over on your right is the South Pacific region. I'm one of 4 districts that belong to the South Pacific Division. I work for a 1-star general that's headquartered in San Francisco, California. The South Pacific Division consists of the Albuquerque District, the Sacramento District, San Francisco District, and mine, the Los Angeles District. You'll note the unique boundaries. We are organized by watershed, and watersheds determine what that boundary is, so you can see the area that we cover in green in Los Angeles. We are the nation's engineer. We are the largest public engineering organization in the nation. The Los Angeles District, as you can see by the mission set, provides project and program management, world-class engineering services for the nation. Los Angeles District covers 226,000 square miles, covered over a 4-state region. My area covers all the way from San Diego along 420 miles of coastline all the way to Morro Bay. I've got Las Vegas in my area of operation, so I'm real happy about that, and the entire state of Arizona. We have 3 Army bases and 8 Air Force installations in my geographic footprint. One of the things I'd like to highlight there in yellow is the fact that the work that we do, and Mayor Edgar alluded to that, the projects that we work on are authorized and appropriated by Congress. So anything we do has to go through Congress. And because of that, I have personal liaison with all the congressional representatives that are in my district. And if you look up the total, based on the population of the area in the Los Angeles district, that covers a lot of people. 8 U.S. senators, 44 U.S. representatives, and 4 governors. Here's just to give you an example or a sample of the congressional delegation. I meet with them regularly. I meet with them not only here in the district offices in their districts, but also I go periodically to Washington, D.C. to meet with them and give them updates on how the projects are in their area. They have some of the major concerns that you have as a local city council, making sure that the economy is strong in their representative districts, and that's done by the work that's brought by the federal government to the areas, and we have a huge program that I'm going to cover shortly. Also part of my congressional outreach, and Councilmember Kusamoto, this might be interesting to you, I participate with all of my congressional representatives with the community or the service outreach to get the nominations for different youngsters like the ones that you see in the audience right here, for those that want to attend different academies, whether it be Air Force, Navy, Army, Coast Guard Academy, or Merchant Marine. So we offer that. So I could be sitting on the board for your son. I'd be happy to give the vote to your son so he can attend one of those academies. But these are some of the things that we do and some of the outreach that we do as we meet with the congressional representatives. We have 3 major business lines in the Los Angeles District: Civil Works, Military, and Interagency and International Support, and I'm going to review that shortly. I want to give you an idea of the project funding that we have in our program. In fiscal year 11, we had a program that was about $750 million, and you can see with this year in fiscal year 12, we're approaching $1 billion. We've reached $1 billion regularly during the ARA, I'll call them the boom years, as you probably saw that here in Los Alamitos, that a lot of good money was coming in. So we had a slight dip, but you can see with our military program, it's huge this fiscal year, so we are approaching $1 billion for this organization. I want to talk to you about some of the things we do. The first business line that we have is Civil Works. And under our Civil Works business line, we're dealing with flood risk management, ecosystem restoration, and navigation. When I mean navigation, I mean dredging of our ports, of Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach, our two major ports, but we also have the Port of San Diego and other small ports along the California coast. Ecosystem restoration, that picture over there is in Tres Rios near Phoenix, Arizona, where we've taken an arid area and with effluent from wastewater that is discharged into the river, we've created riparian habitat. So that's the pictures that you see there. I also show another project that we're working on that may be near and dear to many of you here in Los Alamitos is the Los Angeles River. Many of you notice the Los Angeles River and you think of it as that concrete structure that you see in all the movies. Well, it's actually a river. And what the Corps did back in the 30s is we channelized that river so that all these people could live in the floodplain. But what we're trying to do at the request of the city is create riparian habitat along the 51-mile stretch of the Los Angeles River, 32 miles of which are through downtown Los Angeles, and the tail end of it is right here in Los Alamitos. But we're trying to create that habitat here. And then flood risk management, many of you may be more familiar with that. If you remember from the December rains in the Midwest when the Mississippi River was flooding its banks, and so the Corps of Engineers are the ones that control the flow of that water to prevent it from getting out in the area. My daughter jokes with me that she saw guys, my peers, in the New Orleans area on television. She said, "Dad, how come you're never on television?" And I said to her, "Kayla, if I'm on television, it means something bad is going down in Los Angeles, and we don't want that to happen." So anyways, we deal with flood risk management. It's something that Americans here in Southern California don't think about because when we have flash flooding, it's episodic, it's torrential, and the idea of getting that water out of the LA River Basin is to get it out quickly, and we don't see that happen. But what we're trying to do is do that, and with the technology we have, create riparian habitat so that we can turn and bring more people to the river. Okay, so that's in general what our Civil Works business line is. The next business line is our interagency and international support, and that's work we do for other federal agencies. I'll give two examples. The first one in the upper left corner is the work that we do for the Veterans Administration. And what may be near and dear to Los Alamitos, we do a lot of work at the Long Beach VA Hospital, doing renovations there, doing buildings there, doing stuff for our fallen soldiers. So it's a real rewarding job for us. The other thing that you'll see in the lower left-hand corner is a picture of the border fence. Corps of Engineers did the project management and administration for the construction of the border fence all along the border of California and Arizona. So that continues to be a big project that we do. The third business line that we do is military programs, and you can see all the bases that we support. So that includes building child development centers, building recreation centers, building all kinds of support that you see on the military bases for our Army and Air Force installations. So you can see that my travels take me all around that area. On the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to be going to Fort Irwin tomorrow, but we're building a $274 million hospital, replacing the old hospital that exists. So that's our big project. We're also building a $115 million water treatment plant at Fort Irwin for that community. We're also doing the F-35 bed down. The Air Force is building a new Joint Strike Fighter, and we're going to build the bed down facilities, all the training, all the flight simulators for that at Luke Air Force Base near Phoenix. So I bring up the military program because you might see an installation very close to you and near and dear to your heart, Los Alamitos Joint Training Base. So we are doing work there now, and that's why I want to show you with this slide. I participated with Councilmember Kusamoto and Mayor Edgar in the groundbreaking for that. That's a $24 million building that we're putting up on Los Alamitos Air Base. And we're also doing renovations of the existing electrical grid, also any O&M for there. You can see the fire pumps and reservoir repairs. And we also house our emergency response vehicle right there in the district in Los Alamitos. So as Mayor Edgar said, if I were king for a day, living where I live and not having to fight the traffic, I would love to be able to bring the whole district there and be at Los Alamitos, bringing jobs and bringing people to the area so that we can build a strong community for you here in Los Alamitos. Unfortunately, I don't get that vote, and it's quite a long process, so I don't want to get your hopes too high. I'd have to convince a lot of people to do so, and my command tour is only really 36 months, of which half of it is over. But I'll keep fighting the fight for you. This is just kind of a little bit that talks about how I run my shop there at the Los Angeles district. You know, when we come in, I've got mostly a civilian organization, 800 members that are in the Los Angeles district, only 20 of which are military. So most of the people that I lead are Department of the Army civilians. And these are folks, great men and women, but they've been working at the district, some for as long as 40 years. And the commanders switch out every 3 years. And so for me as a commander, when I came in, I struggled because I had to figure out what was I going to bring to the table? How was I going to be able to inculcate a command philosophy that my people could embrace? And I came up with this idea of how we attack our number one mission, which is project and program execution. And it started with changing the motto of our district. Our motto in the Army is Army Strong. The motto of the Corps of Engineers is Building Strong. And the motto of our district is Building Strong and Taking Care of People, because I wanted the people of my district to know that the focus for everything that we do, every permit that we make, everything that we build, has at its heart the idea that we're taking care of people. So this structure talks about that and how we focus on people, how we train them to do their jobs, and we give them the facilities for them to do their jobs so they can be more effective and that they accomplish their mission. But more than anything, this building strong and taking care of people means taking care of our community. And May and I are so proud of the fact that we're a part of the Los Alamitos community. We see ourselves here for a long time. For most of my career, I've been chasing the next job and chasing the next rank. And we knew when we were coming here that our kids would be in a high school, and this would be a very critical time for them as they got ready to go to college. So I can't state any stronger the fact how proud we are to be local residents of your community and live nearby. And so I have a thought that, you know, we want to be great neighbors. I want to do everything I can. I want to offer the services not only of the Corps, but my own personal services and any endeavor that I can do to assist you in any kind of outreach that you might have in the community. So we have a lot of resources in the district that I can bring to bear. We can assist your schools. We can assist your council. We can talk about partnerships. We can talk about any kind of federal jobs that might be in the area that we may be a part of. But I've got a full staff that would be happy to meet with you and meet with any of your commissioners, with any of you council members to do the job so that we can continue to build strong and take care of the people of Los Alamitos. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you.
Great. Colonel Toy, there may be a couple questions from some of the council members. I'd just like to bring it back up here. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I do.
Jerry.
I just wanted to say how impressive you are, and I'm really looking forward to us having the opportunity to work with you to maybe bring some, revenue into this community through jobs and such. I think that's a great opportunity for us, and welcome to your family.
Thank you so much.
Some of our kids go to the high school too, so and have been through McAuliffe, so welcome.
Thank you for those comments.
Gosh, I think almost all of our kids go to the high school, too. Colonel Toy, I wanted to thank you for spreading yourself as thin as you are, handling 4 different states and everything that you're doing. And I know that you're halfway through your 36 months. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Tour of duty?
Yes, sir.
And I hope all of your kids are out of high school by the end of that. If not, then you're going to have to sign on for another 36 months. I'd like to thank you for your dedication to the community and your partnership with the community. And I've seen it, and I know Mayor Edgar has brought it to all of our attentions at different time. And barring all of that, I just wanted to thank your family for putting up with all of this with him. Traveling around all the time, it's difficult, but he is in uniform. And we're as proud of him as you are, too. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We always say in the Army that we enlist soldiers, but we re-enlist families. And the family is the most important thing to me. And I couldn't have done this without May allowing me to do it. And she has told me, though, with my kids in high school, that if the Army does move me, it might have to go alone this next time.
Good girl.
Thank you.
Great. Marilyn?
Well, as everyone else has said, thank you so much for what you do. And it's great to have a presentation like this because, you know, we hear about the Army Corps of Engineer, and most people don't really know what you do. And so thank you for bringing this to us. I think it was very, very informative to our community.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you.
Councilman Cusimoto.
Thank you, Mayor. Colonel Toy, I want to thank you again for being here and for your service to our country and to our community as well as Los Angeles. I'm really excited, about this presentation you made for us. And I think that, if I can speak on behalf of the council, not just a one-way street of what you can do for us, but what can we do for you? Please keep us in mind, and by all means, contact all of us, for anything we can do to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, just kind of closing, I wanted to thank you for your service. I think Marilyn said it perfectly. You've put a face on the actually U.S. Army Corps of Engineer for us. We've always been kind of shadow boxing with whoever that was, and it's good to just personalize that. I think 3 or 4 years ago we actually had folks come out here from the East Coast saying, hey, we'll tell you about what the U.S. Army Corps does. So we still thought it was a remote operation. For our community, these are you are the owner of the base, the actual ground, and the California National Guard is the person that's actually taking care of it for you. And so to me, I was very encouraged when I seen you out there investing $24 million on that base, as all of us up here in this council have fought very hard to get money to that base, to preserve that base. And we know the state funding is very tight. So when we see federal money going in over there, we're very encouraged. Councilmember Cusimoto talked about, hey, what can we do for you? When we were having problems with the base and we were looking over there at that runway, 2 types of federal funding we were hoped to attract over there, DOD and Homeland Security. And obviously to be able to build stuff, get stuff going, you would be the project management for that. But to raise the mission of that base, we need to have assets there like a new runway. Something that this entire council did, and we actually partnered up with all the cities, Cypress, Seal Beach, even Rossmoor as the community services district, and Garden Grove, and we actually lobbied on behalf to try to get funding to the base. I would offer up to you, as Councilmember Cusimoto did, that if there was anything, you guys can't lobby for yourself, those congressmen, senators, all those folks that you got to take care of, but we can, and we do. A lot of us do that stuff outside of here for what we do here and on regional boards. So without being divisive in the Army and trying to push too far on the agenda, we really have a self-interest, and that's preservation of our base. And anything that we can do to help bring money to that base to really serve a military mission is what we're very interested in. And it's great to have a friendship and a partnership with you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And I'll tell you what we can do is that we are doing a renovation right now of the main operating strip on March Air Base right now. So what I think might be a good thing is I could have my military program manager come out here and maybe work with some of your folks, whomever you want, because like Councilmember Poe said, a lot of it is just not knowing what we do, and a lot of our processes are very difficult. So we could use the template, the model that March did, because it's essentially the same type. It's a reserve air base, and we can talk about how they kind of went through the process to get their base funded for major projects that we're doing. That we have a whole bunch of work that we're doing at March that could also be done for your base here in Los Alamitos. So I'll take that a step further after this. I'm going on a 3-hour trip to Fort Irwin with that military program manager. So we'll have something to talk about now down there.
Perfect.
So we'll definitely work that, but I want to help you along in that process so that you can just learn how it works.
Great.
And maybe it might create partnership opportunities in the future.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before I go, Mayor, too, the last thing that I'm going to do, if you remember, I gave you a coin when I left at Los Alamitos, and I said, when you have this coin, we're going to be team members together. And I said to you, make sure, Mayor Edgar, that you have that coin with you, because if I challenge you with that coin and you don't have it, you're going to owe me a drink. So officially, I challenge you with the coin.
I owe you a drink.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen,
Dang it. I should have been
this way.
prepared for that.
I get more drinks this way. But anyways, more than anything, all kidding aside, and I wouldn't be comfortable doing something like that with you if I didn't have such a good friend in you. So thank you so much. And again, thank you, council members, for allowing me this time to speak with you.
You're very welcome.
Army strong.
Very good.
Army
Thank
strong.
you.
Thank you. Great. Next up is we're going to move into oral communication. At this time, any individual in the audience may speak or come forward to speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Remarks are to be limited not more than 5 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Any speakers for oral communication?
Well, I guess I'll break the ice. My name's Jim Lessner, and I'm going to sign in here.
All righty.
And my subject matter is red light cameras. I brought a chart here.
Steve, can you help him?
And you have copies up there.
Okay.
Is this packet right here, guys?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. This is a
I don't know if I do.
graphic report. Let's see if we can see it on the TV, sort of. You have copies up there. There's copies out in the lobby. And this report is from the city of Garden Grove. It's from their Red Flex program. Your Red Flex program here in Los Alamitos is entitled to the same report, although you're not currently pulling it up from the computer. It's on your police department's computer. It's just something you have to click on the menu and print it out. This report is interesting because it tells you a number of things about the red light camera violations. This report that we're looking at here is just for one intersection, and it breaks down the violations by lane. So we're looking at 4 lanes in a total. Each row across is a lane. It also, within the lane, it breaks it down by egregiousness. That's on this big one here, that's the first box, which has yellow bars. And egregiousness is, in other words, how late the person was when they ran through the light. And each bar is 1/10 of a second. So it has a bar for 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second, all the way up to 19/10 of a second. Then it has just one bar for everything 2 seconds or more. And the usefulness of the egregiousness thing, you can kind of see it in lane 3. If you look at lane 3 and compare it to, well, let's see, lane 1 is probably left turn, so it has a number of long incursions. But lane 2 is a straight ahead lane. Again, this is in Garden Grove. It's not here because we don't have an example from here. But lane 2 is a fairly typical lane. You can see that most of the violations are pretty short, like half a second or less. But lane 3 is interesting because you can see that they trail out, and those longer ones, those are the dangerous guys. Those are the guys who'll kill you, the guys who are up towards 2 seconds. Lane 4 goes back to being pretty typical. And so I guess I'm trying to point out there's something you can learn from these charts. They don't cost anything. You're already paying for it. All you have to do is have your police department click on the thing. It takes a couple minutes and print it out. I'd love to see it also. The other two I won't go into great detail because I'm running out of time here. But the second box over is the time of day, and sometimes that's useful. You can see, you can see here in lane 2 there's a little cluster in the middle of the night. Well, actually, all of them have a cluster. All but the left turn have a cluster in the middle of the night. And then the last box is the day of the week. You might be able to learn something from that. And your traffic engineer might, be aided by it also. The top page that I gave you is why I think the system here needs a little bit of looking at. This is the results, the number of tickets issued over the last several years. The first 4 strips represent 2009, 2010, and it shows that the system was issuing about 200 tickets a month until a few months ago when it went up to 300. So, and that's inexplicable. It's supposed to go down. I mean, it was staying kind of level, which is normal for red light camera systems, but all of a sudden it went up like 50%. So what's going on there? I imagine you're curious about that, like anybody would. Why would that happen? And so I'm suggesting that the bar charts might help you to figure it out. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, Council. There's a wonderful song from the musical Chicago called Mr. Cellophane, where a man laments that he can't be seen and is non-existent. We have a council member, Cellophane, here in this chamber. When this council member speaks, it is as if nothing has been spoken. When a request is made, it is as if nothing has been said. The words exist because we can see them in the meeting minutes. But alas, it's like attempting to get light from a black hole in space. It just never happened. If Mr. Edgar says, I want this to be agendized, amazingly enough, it appears on the next agenda. But Councilmember Cellophane, who received thousands of votes to be up there in the same dais, is routinely ignored. It is as if it never happened, except the meeting minutes show it did. If you look to my right, all the way down at the end, you can see Councilmember Cellophane. If you look at the meeting minutes that are being approved tonight, you'll find that Councilmember Cellophane clearly requested an item be placed on the agenda. It required no research. Just pull a buried item from the past and place the same item under discussion on tonight's agenda. Really not hard to do. But like an echo that doesn't, you can see by looking at tonight's agenda, the item doesn't appear. So did someone tell city staff to not place the item on the agenda, or was it far too complex to cut and paste or copy the item off the agenda from 2 years ago and place it on the agenda for tonight? Oh, that's right. The request came from Councilmember Cellophane. It therefore didn't happen. Maybe we should replace that big chair on the right with a little stool so everyone can see, just by looking at Councilmember Cellophane, that she is to be ignored, and that all the residents that voted for her really don't count and have no voice. Isn't it time that city staff stop disrespecting Councilmember Cellophane and start respecting Councilmember Mejia and all the residents that voted for her? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, a belated Happy New Year to all 5 of you, and wishes that 2012 might be the year of healing for our divided town. I'd say you've gotten off to a good start, at least in one regard, finding a new city manager that all 5 of you were able to enthusiastically endorse, and a choice I hardly agree with. Congratulations and welcome to your new job, Angie, and thank you for taking it. There are, however, additional challenges facing our town, including mounting costs from the trash litigation and other legal fees. In fact, in the warrants you're about to approve, I was surprised to see about $60,000 of our tax dollars on billings from Colantuano and Levin, our city attorney firm. About half of that was related to the trash litigation, which apparently is no longer covered by the consolidated disposal arrangement that our city attorney negotiated, but the other half apparently had nothing to do with trash. I'm concerned about our tax dollars going down a hole. I know when we had our last city attorney, Mayor Edgar was extremely vigilant in questioning billing after billing, finding exactly what it was for, if the work was really done. And now it looks like we've got $250,000 budgeted this year for our city attorney firm, And I don't think I've heard any council member question one billing on the matter. But that's the tip of the iceberg. Since as things now stand, we as taxpayers are responsible for reimbursing the legal fees of the Citizens for a Fair Trash contract times 2 because it was filed under the a law about private-public attorney or something like that. Since the judge invalidated the contract with Consolidated, it also looks like we could be on the hook to reimburse Consolidated the city's cost of litigation up to that point of the decision, plus potential class action litigation. All because the council took the city attorney's advice that they were following the law even though they were going with the 5th highest bidders. If I had an attorney that gave me that kind of advice, I would find another attorney. Now maybe I'm being overly harsh, maybe it's just a bad fit, you can say what you want, but we're in a big hole, and I'm not sure that we should be getting the same advice from the lady who got us into the hole, or the male. I like, no sexism here. In fact, if you look at the 6-page memorandum that our city attorney prepared relative to the alleged Brown Act violation, you'll find mistruth after just plain illogic. Basically, she's asking us to believe that Councilmember Kusamoto, in an effort to explain private information, reveal private information to Art DeBolt, who she claimed might be his #1 contributor, although it was #2 at least 3 times as much I know personally was given by another contributor. If you got the time to look up the one receipt, why can't you look up all of them? Okay, so to get this information to Art DeBolt, our nefarious council member on the left, my left, released a letter disclosing that information to the world rather than pick up the phone and say, hey, Art, got some private info for you. And in the letter he said he didn't want to go to any more of the meetings where he could get this private information to disclose to Art DeBolt. And this private information was the shocking news that our council was divided on the trash contract. Now, she goes to great lengths on my dime to explain that. And whether I opposed or disagreed with Councilmember Kusamoto, and I'm going to run out of time, and it's detailed on the blog, letsfixlosal.com, it makes no sense for us to be spending our tax money on this sort of thing when we need to be fixing the problem and working together to do it. I think you've gotten some bad advice, and it's time to stop. One example, if I can get it in before the beep, she cites a statement that was quoted in Councilmember Kusamoto's letter that I heard from the dais. And she said he had to be in the private session to hear that statement, thus telling me what went on in the private session. By her interpretation, our city attorney was violating the Brown Act. Details in Let's Fix LoSal. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your efforts.
Great. Anybody, any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next
one
item.
more.
I'm actually glad to hear that I'm not the only person. I met this other gentleman in the parking lot. Same scenario.
Go ahead and state your name, please.
My name is Shane, last name Causey.
Okay.
I share the exact same feelings of this other gentleman. I've lived and worked in LaSalle pretty much most of my life, and pretty much a consensus across the board as far as all the businesses. Everyone's doing bad. Majority of the people are doing bad. So to hear that our tax dollar is going towards legal fees, not being treated correctly, so on and so forth, it's very troubling to me. So I would ask that if there are any other additional legal fees in reference to, this case, that it not be taken on by the city of Los Alamitos. So, yeah, and if this is in fact true, I ask that you step down instead of putting the burden of, of what's going on the tax dollar, excuse me, on the tax dollars back, or the taxpayers back, rather. Ready?
Thank you. Any other comments? Good evening. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Rodney Phillips, and I feel the same way. I've lived and worked here most of my life, and I don't feel that we should be burdened with the expense at all.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Hey, Judy.
Judy Klabouch, immediate past president of the Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank the mayor and the mayor pro tem for attending the inaugural celebration last Friday, and remind everybody that our breakfasts are the first Friday of every month at the courtyard. I think there were like 65 people there this last week, and if everybody makes an effort to come out, it makes the breakfast very, very successful. Now to take off my chamber hat, and I didn't know if the city of Los Alamitos had any interest in looking into what's going on with the shops of Rossmoor. The traffic is just going to be absolutely prohibitive, and I know it's really affecting Rossmoor. It should affect the Highlands when the babies are us and the toys are us and all these other big plans that the city of Seal Beach has along with the shopping center. And I just think that, I don't know if they've had traffic studies or if you guys have or whatever, but I mean, it's so bad down there in the boulevard in the turn-ins and turn-outs, and now it's going to be worse. So if somebody can look into it and, I don't know, whatever, we need help. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Hey, Richard.
Hi, good evening. Richard Murphy. I want to second Mrs. Klabouch's opinion. I happen to attend the last Rossmoor meeting, and I think Rossmoor is waking up to the fact that Los Alamitos is not their enemy. They finally realized that Seal Beach looks at Rossmoor and looks at us as a dumping ground because they got the perfect situation. They care about the city near the beach, and we're stuck with 90% of their traffic over here. I don't know what we can do about it, but I certainly urge us to do everything to try and find any resolution to the traffic problems that I encounter every day from the Highlands. In fact, when I come home, it takes me about 6 lights to make it over the bridge now. It's just unbelievably bad, and it's going to get worse. And as I said, I think that Rossmoor's woken up. The geography of the fact is that we're the hind end of Seal Beach. We are not the part that anybody cares about in Seal Beach, and if we ever go to a super city, it'll be worse for us because we'll be behind the shopping center. I don't know what you call it when you're beyond the last place position, but we will be there. So anything we could do would be greatly appreciated.
Right.
Thank you.
So just one comment on that. So Richard is from the Rossmoor Highlands, and I've gotten a lot of calls myself. I'm sure other council members have too. And like Richard said, I also getting a tremendous amount of calls from Rossmoor saying, please try to do something. Just so the community of Los Alamitos knows, all of the council members have been talking with Angie and Steve Mendoza, our Public Works Director, and we're looking at this. There's really 3 topics that are going on there, and I'd be open if any of the council members would want to agendize this to a later meeting, but just so that we have a good perspective on this, because I've been watching this also, the RCSD meetings that have been on TV to kind of get a better idea. Number one is that the shops of Rossmoor are in there. They're building. They're almost done. There'll be a new In-N-Out burger there coming at the end of January. Too late to affect the change there. Seal Beach, we did a little bit of research on our side. As an affected agency or city, we have the opportunity to weigh in on these types of issues, but their land use designation in that area and the EIR passed for that shopping center declared a negative declaration that they didn't have to come and ask again. They were already approved to move forward. So slowing down the shops at Rossmoor as it pertains to those businesses where concrete and wood's going up, there's probably not a whole lot you can do. The second item over there is the affordable housing element. Mm-hmm. There's an affordable housing element back. So I've met with a couple, definitely with one of the council members directly and talked to them about that. And the issue with the housing element is they are required by law in 3 years to designate some place in Seal Beach to have low-income housing. They don't have to build it, but they have to reserve a spot for it. And they have to do that just like we did. We reserved a spot just locally here. They have a thing called RENA, which is regional low or affordable housing. And if you don't, as a city, adhere to doing that, you lose any federal or state funding that gets appropriated because you didn't meet your requirement for low-income housing. The issue, though, which I think could still be influenced if the council wanted to take this on, and I think in a very friendly way, not an attack way, would be to ask to participate in the process of helping them come up with where their location is and facilitate public workshops of whether we would, vote, if we had a vote in it, to support affordable housing in an area that's already got a lot of density. That is an area I think we could influence, we could get involved with on a technical issue, using staff again, if the council directed the staff to do that, and any of us can participate in the public process. One of the things that was interesting that when I was talking to some of the folks in Seal Beach, their comment was, look, there's nothing we could do. In 3 years, it's going to happen anyway. But the correction to that is it's going to happen. It just doesn't have to happen there. Mm-hmm. And so part of this is, and again, Mayor Levitt, very open guy, Councilmember Gary Miller, our Mayor Pro Tem Gary Miller, been working with him on the base, a ton of issues, very open-minded, but would appreciate continued contact. I also noticed that Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Miller actually participates in these sessions. He's trying to help from the inside, and it seems that the council on the Seal Beach side seems to be open to them. Kind of the third area that they were looking at was doing protests on the shopping center and looking at that that extra lane that comes in off of Seal Beach Boulevard to turn into Rossmoor. As far as taking a stance to protest stuff, I'm not sure that, at least for myself, that I'd be interested in that. But that lane was helpful in circulation. That might be something we take a look at if we were going to engage in this. But really, that would require the council to look at this on a more technical issue and engage Seal Beach really from a circulation of Los Alamitos Boulevard, what's going on there. And again, the only reason I'm bringing it up, and Richard, I waited, you're a Los Al resident. You are the face of kind of the Rossmoor Highlands over there of people that have continued to call and they're really concerned. I just wanted to educate the community on what we know so far, and it is something that we could look at. But again, kind of the summary, the low income or affordable housing element is probably the real thing that we could influence as a city council, and I think everybody up here would probably be supportive of that. Getting engaged in this, being a participant in the meetings, and if there's something else that we've left off, those were the three areas that we've kind of looked at as a council, at least independently, probably working with staff.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
I had the opportunity of speaking with some active people over in Rossmoor, and I think that, as the mayor said, the thing that we can affect is the housing element. And I know that at the Rossmoor meeting, there was discussion there were alternate places for that to happen, and I'd like to see, as you said, in a very friendly way, for us to try and work with Seal Beach on behalf of Rossmoor to move that housing to that secondary spot, because I think that would alleviate some of the concerns with regards to the low-income housing. And that's all I have to add.
So I think, Angie, what Jerry's asking for is the agenda item. And I would just please ask to have the wording delicate. I think what we're trying to do is very respectfully have a dialogue with them on that as a probably more of a concern on circulation and the traffic ingress, egress out of that corner. And, see if we can just, constructively participate with them. Anybody else want to speak on public comment?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here before you this evening to discuss some Aquatic Foundation business. I'm the chairman of the Los Alamitos Aquatic Foundation. Some months back, we began to engage
Excuse me, can you just state your name for the public?
I'm sorry, George Briggeman.
Thank you.
Farquhar. Some months back, my board members and I, we began to engage in some dialogue as to whether the Aquatic Foundation was continuing to serve the purpose for which we initiated somewhat, I guess it's been 13 years ago. And in passing, I had a conversation with then Mayor Stevens regarding this, and he suggested that I convene the board and ask and inquire as to what we thought as a group would be the best way to wind down the foundation. And he felt that we should go out with a bang, so to speak, and meet with a couple of members of the council. Possibly you could appoint an ad hoc committee. Mayor Stevens at the time had suggested this, and we determined what would be the best capital improvement that this foundation could provide for the community. I happened to be at the last city council meeting, and I had an opportunity to discuss it briefly with Angie. And I just want you to know that we're going to get together here in the next couple of weeks. And if you would be so kind to assign a couple of council members that could meet with us, is that possible?
Yeah, I've talked to Angie about actually some improvements that we're having to potentially look at for Race on the Base. So Angie, if that's something that you would be able to work with, it sounds like Councilmember Stevens has been kind of a start point there. But yeah, absolutely.
I apologize, Angie. I've been a bit remiss in getting back to you. I told you I'd get back to you a couple weeks after the meeting, so I thought I'd just stop in this evening and let you know.
Well, thank you very much, George. I think this is definitely something that we should put together and move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll contact you, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, this time we're going to go ahead and move this forward and move on to the next agenda item. Next up is register of major expenditures. Can I get a motion?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay. We're going to go to a roll call vote. City Clerk.
Councilmember Graham Mejia.
Aye.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Poe.
Aye.
Mayor Edgar.
Aye. Next item is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar be acted upon with one motion, unless somebody on the council would like to pull one. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Mayor, I'd like to pull item A.
Alrighty.
Make a motion to move the remainder.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Councilmember Mejia, item 8A, approval of minutes.
Mayor, if I may, I'd just like for the city clerk to note my continuous comment with regards to the lack of historical documentation with the meeting minutes being action as opposed to summary, and I hope that down the line we can change those back so that there's a clear and present record for councils and residents in the future.
Thank you, Councilmember Mejia. Can I get a motion to move this item?
I'll move the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
Great. Next item, into the consent calendar, into the discussion items. Item 9A, authorization to purchase Sanchez PD Assist software bundle, and this is a police department software bundle. So, Chief?
Sure. As you know, Scientia Consulting Group has been our IT provider since the beginning of this fiscal year, and we're extremely pleased with the service that we've received from them. Our support services manager, Cassandra Palmer, who also happens to be the city's IT liaison, is going to make this presentation about a unique opportunity that we have in the police department to take advantage of a software bundle that Scientia is offering that will not only fulfill an immediate need that we have, but it will also offer some things that will enhance our efficiencies in the police department. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cassandra.
Great.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. This report, as the Chief mentioned, is about a great opportunity for us to serve as a beta site for some new software. It's called PD Assist. In fact, Scientia just named this software as we were putting this together, and I'll explain more about that as we move forward in the report. It's important to note that we're not asking for a budget appropriation tonight. We're just seeking to use some savings that we have from some asset seizure-funded police IT projects that have come in under budget, again, as a result of Scientia's efforts. As you're aware, the asset seizure money does need to be used for police projects, so we can't redirect that to something outside of the police department. This customized software is important because it's going to reduce some of our redundancies and facilitate our participation in a county-wide facial recognition project. As a beta site, we'll save more than 50% of the retail cost of this software and will become a model for other agencies. So how did we get this opportunity? Well, as you'll recall, last spring, the city went to bid for information technology support services, and ultimately, Scientia Consulting Group was awarded this contract, and they began working for us last July. I'm happy to report that they've exceeded all of our expectations so far. They participate in our monthly IT steering committee meetings and offer solutions to automate processes and save us money. So far, they've been able to offer us customized software solutions in all of our various disciplines, and they're cheaper than the off-the-shelf products that we could buy. So really, they're finding ways that we can be more efficient and cost less money. They're very security conscious, and immediately they discovered some vulnerabilities in our network infrastructure, and they've already mitigated those issues. And they've done this without costing us additional money because they found some redundancies in the way our systems were set up. So they're actually eliminating some of the hardware and some of the software maintenance costs in doing this. For many of us, the biggest benefit is we're no longer fighting against our technology. We're actually working with it, and it's making our jobs easier. Before I talk more about Scientia, I want to tell you a little bit about the Integrated Law and Justice Agency, or ILJ as I'll refer to it from here out. And it's sorry about that. That's Siri, newest technology, about the county-wide law enforcement goals. Briefly, the ILJ is tasked with using technology to improve information sharing and save money through improved efficiency. And for the most part, the ILJ will provide the funding for those programs. The projects that they've offered us and we've implemented so far have included things like CopLink, the ICE scheduling software, and electronic subpoenas. The current ILJ project is going to standardize mugshots and is tied to the facial recognition project. And that project already, we're seeing the hardware show up. I've got boxes in my office, and it'll be installed on the 1st of February. The ILJ actually will come out and assist with that installation as well. They fund all of that. The part that they don't fund is the software to manage the photos behind that scene. Most of the larger police departments actually have stuff in place that manages the photo database. We're so small, we've never had anything in place. So we're at a point now where we need to look at investing in something that will manage that for us. It has to do with tying your photos to your primary databases, your police reports, all through a primary key. Let me move forward and show you Scientia's solution. Now, this is just a visual. I want you to have an idea of what the interconnectivity of the modules are. I'm going to show you some more detail in some upcoming slides. PD Assist, which is basically the platform that all of this operates from, is an intranet-like platform that we will have on all of the police computers, including the cars. So we'll be able to access that from any desktop in the building and out in the field as well. It's got complex interfaces, and it will allow us to retrieve critical data and quick click links to information. It's going to be time saving, and I really can't emphasize enough the importance of the increased access to the information and the data that our officers will have. If you were to ask them about it, they'd say it's like gold for them. It helps them solve crimes quicker. It'll help them be safer because they'll have the information that they need. Now, for me, one of the most intriguing features of this is the crime analysis or crime statistics module. This is going to provide almost instantaneous crime stats in a format that'll allow us to assess the information immediately. Typically now, we run about 6 weeks behind in terms of getting that information because it's extracted from RMS. Now, there are some issues with getting the information this way because it's going to come right off a CAD. So some of it may have to be adjusted down the road, but it's still going to provide a really valuable tool for us, particularly for getting that information out in the field. Our officers will see immediately what's happening. We'll be able to provide more information to you and more quickly as well. Finally, this will be the platform that'll host our jail booking and briefing modules. This is what it looks like. And the real benefit of this system is not in just looking at this view, it's the information, the access to the other modules. As you can see, we've redacted some of the stuff that's already there. This is their demo slide for us. But as you can see, the lines along the top there that provide the quick access, having this be our default home page will be very useful. And next is the jail booking module. This component of the beta site is what actually drove us to look at this project. And if we were to purchase this without the benefit of the beta site bundle, it would cost us $12,000. Aside from that, this is what it does. It will link those photos, as I was mentioning before, back to our other databases, and it'll give us a mechanism to upload them through the ILJ into the facial recognition program and into CopLink. The program facilitates that process from here forward, so we're going to be able to go back and add our legacy photos to the system as well. And at one point during this process, the ILJ actually hired a company to assist with doing that. And the way our databases are set up, they weren't able to do that. So that's part of how this discussion came about with the steering committee and Scientia and their solution to this. We're sitting there with these photos that we weren't able to incorporate. The final thing that is really significant about this is the single point entry. That means that our officers will enter certain information one time and it can populate numerous forms with it just pushing a button. That is extremely time saving, and it's just an incredible tool that will help our officers get finished with the computer work and back in the field a lot quicker. It'll benefit records because now this stuff will push immediately up to records. So that's just a huge component of that. And I'm going to show you a little bit on this screen. This is actually what the jail booking screen looks like. The officers will take the information after entering it one time, and they'll be able to push it out. If you imagine that center circle there where it says the jail bars, that's where the information is stored, and it's pushed out to the booking forms so they can actually populate maybe 9 forms after completing that information. It'll also automatically forward out to our UCR coding into RMS, so it'll save our records people from re-entering that same information. It'll also populate into CalPhoto. Eventually, it's going to go into LiveScan. We're a little ahead. The county is going there. Probably in about a year, we'll be pushing the same information, these same photos, out into the state system. This really is huge for us. It's hard to describe how significant it is. The next module is the virtual briefing module. And the simplest way to describe this for you is to say that it automates our briefing presentations and puts all of that material in an electronic format. So once again, our officers can retrieve it out in the field. If there's something they discussed in briefing, maybe they discussed a particular suspect or something, they can actually go back and retrieve that photo in their cars now. It'll increase our consistency in disseminating that information to all of the shifts. If we have an officer who works a different schedule and doesn't attend regular briefings, they'll get that same briefing information when they come on duty. We'll be able to log extra patrol checks and retrieve the information when that's been completed. So if the chief wants to check on something that's been done in the field, he'll be able to pull that up immediately. It'll happen right there from the field rather than having to go through dispatch. So it's a really good use of the resource. It's going to generate our shift logs. It'll go into one of the other programs I mentioned earlier, which is called ICE. It's going to go into ICE. It'll grab the deployment schedule, load it into a shift log, which is typically done by hand now, and then it'll automatically forward that information up to our dispatch center, which we do the old-fashioned way now and we fax it up there. So it's really going to automate some of our processes. This is what it looks like, just to give you kind of a visual perspective on the flow of the information and what the connectivity looks like. And I'll give you a picture of the screenshot here. You know, there's some other features in this without, belaboring this too much. If you look along the side column there, our supervisors can look at officer stats. They can look at range scores. It'll really improve their capabilities as supervisors. And as you see, there's some empty slots along that left-hand side, and Scientia's already told us that they'll be looking for things that they can plug into that as we identify other things that, wow, this would be really great to have in the field. So to conclude, I just want to mention this is really an incredible tool and a special opportunity that we have right now to be on the cutting edge of this technology. This concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Cassandra. Let's bring it back to the council. Before I do that, I'd like to go ahead and open up to public comment or anybody from the community have any feedback on this.
J.M. Ivler. Does this plug into any APHIS systems?
Not yet, no.
Is the city looking at using APHIS?
No, we are connected to our county. It'll go through CLETS in the county. It's going to be connected to DOJ specifically. It will eventually go through and connect with our live scan. Eventually, it will go national.
That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? I'm going to go ahead and move it back to the council and go ahead and start with Councilmember Mejia. Do you have anything?
Oh, I thought we were going with the rotation. I'm sorry. I would have been ready. Well, I'll say this, that I haven't seen you this excited about something for police work, and I have to admit that I think the number one concern for the people in the community is their public safety. I think this is something that we owe to them. And when I decided to run for council, this is the kind of thing that I was hoping to be involved with, things that would better the community, and I support it 100%.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Ken?
Yeah, I have to agree on that part of it. One of the things that we wanted to do was put more uniforms, more visibility out on the street to be able to help protect our residents, but we weren't giving them the right tools, and this definitely looks like it's a tool that would and should be used. I've got a couple of questions on it too, though. What kind of tech support are we going to get on this system? Are they going to handle any maintenance, any tech advice, or training of existing staff?
Yes, they're going to be providing the training, and the unique thing about having Scientia as our IT service provider right now is they're available to us 24/7. So anytime we have a question, all we have to do is pick up a phone and call. They're on site here 4 or 5 days a week. So really, even night shift, if they have a question, they can call them and ask them. But they will provide the training and help us with that. We'll be responsible for maintaining the content, the little messages that you saw, those things. But the interfaces, they'll handle those interfaces for us.
Very good. And the upgrading of the cars, is there going to be any additional cost involved in the computers in the mobile units that we have?
No, the computers that we're going to be installing in the cars, as council already approved several months ago, those are going to be delivered any day now. We're waiting. We actually are putting the mounts in the new cars to hold those. This system is going to work really well with our new computers. And Scientia was a part of that project as well. So they're making sure that everything is going to be compatible.
Good. And we're definitely interfacing with the county system on this?
Yes, we are.
Now, is it the same system that they are currently using in their patrol cars for the county?
No, right now, our cars are not connecting directly with the county. Well, they are, but they're going through our dispatch system to do that. This is actually going to increase the connectivity to the county. We have different systems. We have our CAD and RMS system, and we have another system which is directly linked to the county called Elite. We're going to be able to go through both ways to get the information we need. It varies depending on what they're trying to find out. They know which tool works best. So we're actually going to be increasing their opportunities in the field to get to some other databases.
Very good. And how many cities around us are using it? Is Cypress using it? Is Long Beach using it? Anyone
Nobody
else?
is using it yet. We will be their beta site. I know that some other cities are talking to them, so it really is a fortuitous opportunity for us to have the first go at this. You know, probably there'll be a few little glitches along the way that we'll have to work through with them, and maybe being a smaller city makes that easier for them. But I do know they're offering some components of this at twice the price, because we're getting that special rate, to some other local cities, which I probably shouldn't mention right now.
Don't, but it seems like some of the other cities are probably going to be leaning on us on this system, just to as a test more than anything else, and that's good. That's good. The little city that probably has the best police force, the best coverage, and the best safety record anywhere around. So thank you.
Great. Marilyn.
This whole thing, it almost sounds too good to be true. The word beta, could you explain what that means?
This is brand new software. We're going to be the first ones to host it, so they're going to be testing it on us. That's basically what it means.
Okay.
We're their pilot program.
All right. And I do know because of, and I know it's not even related in the field, but as far as computers, it is. If you use a program called TurboTax for income tax, when you put the initial data in, it does exactly that. It goes to every form that information needs to be. So that is really, really a time-saving tool for everyone. It eliminates, going to different forms and doing them. So I could really understand, appreciate that this is going to be beneficial for our police department. And it does say here that we will have a recurring maintenance fee of $2,700 per year.
Yes, we will. We're going to be able to absorb that in our regular software maintenance fee budget. And the reason that we won't see an increase is because Scientia has actually been eliminating some of the software maintenance fees, because they're analyzing it and they're coming back and saying, you know what, don't renew this. If this goes out, we can have you up and running in 4 hours. It's not worth paying all that money.
Sure.
So they have a technology strategy, and they're really working with us as a city to be more effective and more efficient.
Okay, great. Okay, it sounds really good. Great. Thank you for the very interesting presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Cassie, thank you for the presentation. I guess Ken had asked a question about other cities. So, how much? I guess mine's kind of sort of related. I was going to ask that question, but how much development has been going on in our police force on this product? Was it, when you say you're doing the beta test, how mature was the product before we got to the beta test state?
Well, we don't have the product yet. We have to pay, that amount that we're asking permission for tonight, as soon as we get your authorization. So what they've developed, they've done on their own outside. And to actually put it in the field, we'll be the first ones once they install that.
Okay.
Is that answering your question?
Yeah, I think so. Because my question really starts to go down to, are we guinea pigs? In a beta test, of course, we are in some regards. But is it really a beta test status product, or is it really more immature than that? And are they going to be learning at the expense of our force and our residents? And that's a concern that I have. And it sounds exciting. I think it's going to do a lot of things to multiply the workforce, the police force. That's a good thing. But I do have a little bit of concern when you say beta test and how mature is it? And do you know how many months they've been spending developing this product? Did they indicate that?
You know, I really can't tell you how long they've been working on it. Portions of the product are already copyrighted. Other portions, in fact, I asked them if they'd come here tonight and do a demo, and their concerns were that the copyrights aren't complete on the entire package yet.
Okay.
But what they're looking at, what I showed you, is the stuff that already works in their model, in their, you know, the software's already developed. They're looking to us to be able to enhance that and add further capabilities to the system. So that's primarily going to be what we do in our role as a beta site, is help them expand it. And then the other thing, which I promised them we'd do, is we'd show it off to other agencies if they want to come see how it works. So that's more our role in the beta site. And we spoke with Sandy. We're going to make sure that our contract, our agreement, is very clear, and that there's really no risk for us in terms of something that is not going to work. And I have to say that so far working with them, I really trust them and their expertise. They have been able to fix things that we had been trying to get fixed for a year. And we can fix that. It'll just take us a few minutes or an hour or something. And to have them come in and revamp things and fix things so quickly, we're really dealing with a knowledge base there that's just pretty incredible.
Okay. Thank you. Again, appreciate the presentation, and I'm excited about this product.
Great. So my final comments on this is a couple things. Scientia as a company has just been a tremendous step that the council approved, and we went with them and switched from Bray IT. And we used to have a support that was break fix only. We would get to a point where we just couldn't stand it anymore, and we'd finally make a call to get some help. Scientia not only took on that work, but they are actually proactively sitting here with us more frequently, visiting. And I had the same concern, and I had talked to you guys kind of before the meeting on are we a beta model, and do we need to be concerned about that? In my type of work, being the beta client isn't always the most popular thing to do, but because it's risky. And the thing that I wanted to assure the community is that police services are critical, but I wanted to differentiate. We aren't talking about 911, telecommunications here. We're talking about the administrative section of booking and more effectively pushing data through. And I think that if we were going to take any sort of risk on being a beta client, it would be on those types of systems and software. I also think that it just further cements our relationship with this vendor, at least at this time. I've been talking to Angie a lot as we've been getting her on board and talking about some of the challenges, even in her old job in Parks and Rec, is wouldn't it be nice to have a system in Parks and Recreation where we would be able to be more effective on taking online orders for services and events. And the good challenge we have now is those events or those problems seem to be overheard by Scientia while they're here, and they're like, wait, we can do that. We can fix that. And so we've got a company that sees it investing in Los Alamitos, not only with the contract they have for IT support. They're moving into a beta for a police services admin system, and then also looking at other areas. And and again, Parks and Rec, not a mission critical. If it fails, the beta failure is not. Citizens are at risk, and I think I would just echo everything everyone's saying to promote that relationship. It also kind of helps with the branding. I had a high tech company in this town, and there wasn't good telecommunications to keep it here, and I had to go someplace else. And it's good to see a company come in here and start to use Los Alamitos as a capability and a place to be able to roll something out. So I think it just continues to help with the brand. If there's no other comments on this, what I'd like to do is look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Nobody opposes, and it's approved. Thank you. I have a request here for a 5-minute break for a restroom break, so I'm going to honor that. So it's about 8:28. We'll be back here at 35 after.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
We're going to go ahead and call this meeting back to order. And we left off here on item 10, Mayor and Council initiated business. Item 10A, City Manager.
And Mr. Mayor, I must recuse myself for this item. Sure. So I'll be going in the back.
We're just going to turn this item over to City Attorney Sandy Levin.
Great.
And just very briefly, and then I will turn it over to the City Council. You asked me to analyze and report back on whether the information disclosed in the letter from a council member was a disclosure of confidential information that was a violation of law, and we analyzed that issue. We gave you a range of options on that the city might undertake in response to this, ranging from taking no further action to retaining a city prosecutor or turning it over to another government prosecutorial agency. If you have any questions regarding the analysis, I'd be happy to answer them. And otherwise, I think my part is laid out in the memo, and it's next up for the City Council to decide as a matter of policy where they want to go with this.
Great. Before we go into more detail, I'm going to open it up for public comment if there's anybody in the audience that wants to make any comments. And again, just to kind of frame this issue a little bit for the community, we have an item, we have a lawsuit that's going on right now. And what's in the staff report, just to summarize it for folks that may be watching this on TV or in the crowd. And so we had an item that was being pursued on a couple different counts that had to do with the trash contract. And what ended up happening is that trash contract lawsuit started in end of October of 2010. 2010. And at that point, we had an election, and Councilmember Kusumoto was elected, and he joined us in closed session as anybody could if they wanted to participate in that process. Part of the requirement in participating in closed session was that you needed to have no conflict of interest, and you're willing to participate. Three of us that are up here are participating in the closed session, and Councilmember Mejia had recused herself, and so she was not participating she had a conflict, and she disclosed her conflict, and we went on. The issue that we're talking about this evening is that this lawsuit is coming down to a point where we're trying to wind it down. We've basically had the judge go out and evaluate 3 items. We didn't have it. The plaintiffs that filed the lawsuit had the lawsuit evaluated on 3 causes. And just to keep it simple, first cause was a corruption claim, and that was ruled to have no basis or meaning, and at that point, that was pretty much overturned. And then the plaintiffs, which were J.M. Ivler and Art DeBolt, actually filed an appeal, so that one was kind of locked up in what we'll call the appeal. Second item was the declaratory relief, and really what that item was with the trash contract was Art and JM sued to get the trash contract kind of injuncted or stopped and declared invalid. The judge on that one ruled that was a little bit repetitive and duplicative, because if any of the item in cause number 3, which is the municipal code issue, was found to be in favor of the plaintiff, it's possible that the contract would be voided anyway. So that item was put to rest, and there's no contest on that issue. The third and final cause had to do with the municipal code, and the municipal code issue was an evaluation of the code that the council used, and the final determination of awarding the contract. And the judge had found that the code that we used, the municipal code, was inconsistent, asked for us to fix it, and said, once you fix it, we'll void the contract now, and you guys as a council can decide which direction you want to go after that. as a city council, we filed an appeal on that, and so that basically meant that that a majority of the council didn't agree with that, and those check-ins after each step that I explained get reconciled in the back, called closed session. So that process that I just explained has taken place from October 2010 to just currently. So the issue at hand is on December 5th, 2011, 12 months into the process, we were finishing up a meeting. We now had a position. The judge had made the rulings on all this, and there was a desire to start discussions to potentially see if we can find some middle ground. Instead of everybody continuing to fight it off for the next 3 years in appeal, can we get above it and try and help move the city forward and see if we can find any way to do any sort of settlement and just be done in the sake of the community. That being said, at that point, at that turning point, Councilmember Kusamoto, as we were getting ready to break in December 5th, after the last agenda item for open session, we went to closed session. And in that, Councilmember Kusamoto handed around an envelope. And basically, the envelope went to the mayor, and it went to the members of the press. And so when we all got called back into closed session, we found out through that letter that Councilmember Kusamoto was not going to be participating any further. He is self-selected out. He had typed up a letter, and he had prepared that letter, typed up in envelopes addressed to each person. Basically at that point, we took a look at it in closed session. Marilyn was back on a trip, so we'd actually noticed that agenda item for closed session where she could actually call in. And so we were in the back getting ready to go through some discussions on this lawsuit, next steps, culmination of almost a year's worth of time. And Councilmember Kusamoto had elected out. So at that point in the letter, there was some concern that the question was, did he recuse himself like Councilmember Mejia did? She disclosed that she had a conflict, and she said, look, I can't participate in that. And she stepped out, and as required, when you recuse yourself, you have to disclose your conflict, and that had happened. But or was he self-selecting out and going forward with just saying, hey, look, I don't want to participate any further? But so at that point, there was questions. So what happened the last council meeting is that letter was agendized, because at that point he's gone. He's no longer in closed session. We've got questions, but legally, when two of us or three of us or more get together, we can't talk about anything to do with the council. So we needed to bring that back up into open session and have an open dialogue of, hey, this is what was going on here. That discussion came down to 2 points. One was the letter was submitted. Did you recuse yourself or excuse yourself? And at that point, he said, look, I excused myself. I do not have a conflict, but I just don't feel I can participate anymore. And in the letter that Councilmember Kusamoto wrote, he had stated 4 things of why he didn't want to participate anymore. And he said, I might have been hasty. I mean, in fairness to Councilmember Kusamoto, he said, look, I may have been hasty, but, I understand it's my duty. I'm elected to represent the city. I should get back there. I'm ready to come back into closed session. The second item from that process was the problem with that was in this letter, specifically, there was 4 reasons that were explained of why that Councilmember Kusamoto did not want to continue to participate. And that letter was disclosed with the press and the council. So we got into a pretty spirited discussion last council meeting to talk a little bit more specifically of whether those items that were disclosed in that note actually disclosed confidential information or not. Something that the standard that we would use is that something that wouldn't be known to the outside public that wasn't back there in closed session. For many of us going back there in closed session, if you think about it, I mean, there's many times we have a lot of conflicts on the council on different things, and we agree on a lot of things. But when we go back there, we're representing the city, and we may even have some conflicts back there. But when we come out with a decision, whatever happened back there by law needs to stay back there. So the issue was that in that letter, there was a conflict up here saying in the last agenda item, then we went through this and said, hey, look, some members of the council thought that that letter actually disclosed confidential information. And the issue with that was that if that confidential information was disclosed, that's a direct violation of state law and a direct violation of municipal code on protection of confidential information. Seeing that that was going nowhere, because none of us are lawyers up here, we asked the city attorney to take a look at this issue, more specifically to give an evaluation of this item to see what, from a legal perspective, what are the thresholds that would be applied to each item to see if we had a potential of violation. So as I'm getting ready to open it up to the public, I just wanted to make sure to kind of set the table for what we're about ready to talk about. So the summary of the staff report is the city attorney has outlined, and anybody that's interested can read about this in your packet if you're here physically or online on the city's webpage for this meeting. But it's a pretty lengthy explanation, and I would just ask the council members. I mean, you guys can get into it as much as you want to, but let's not repeat 6 pages of data. I mean, it's there. If you have a specific question, then we can go through it. But I would just say it was pretty thorough in the evaluation, and there's 2 things that I think that we need to talk about tonight, and this is just my perspective. One, an analysis of what the city attorney did. Is there any questions? And 2, what, if any, are the next steps? And the city attorney provides 6 alternatives. There's probably a lot of different options, but at this point, those are the things that we're looking at. That's how I think we are going to dissect this item. So when we get ready to talk through with public comment, please feel free to come up and ask questions, state opinions. But what I'd like to do is to collect the public comment and then bring it back to the council, and we'll go through it in more detail. Just so everybody's clear, Councilmember Kusamoto stepped back and said, hey, look, this item pertains me. There's 2 types of conflict of interest. There's financial conflict of interest, which would be legally required to step out, and there's common law financial or common law conflict of interest, which means potentially he would be having a discussion of whether to prosecute himself, and so he's taking the high road and stepping out and allowing this council as a body to go through the discussion. So on that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comment, and then when we're done, we're going to bring that back to the council, and the floor is now open.
And Mayor, just so it's clear, should he wish to address the council, Councilmember Kusamoto is welcome to take his turn at the podium and make any comments that he would like to make.
And just because he is a city member of the city council, and this is a very delicate situation, I would just say that we wouldn't limit him to 5 minutes. He can speak his piece and go through if he does decide to do that. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and open it up to the public.
Yes, my name is Shane Causey. Will there be an opportunity after the explanations to also make comments?
I'm going to have just one public comment period, so if you want to go through and ask your questions or state your positions, I'd ask for you to do it at this point.
Okay. Well, it's not necessarily a question. It's just reiterating what I had said before, which is one of my biggest concerns is where my tax dollars are going. So I've had an opportunity to look over everything, that was stated online as far as the details of the situation. And to me, I mean, this gentleman hasn't gone to court yet, obviously, but it looks as if he's guilty of a crime. So I would just ask that the city of Los Alamitos does not, spend my tax dollar on this item.
Great. Thank you. Hi there.
Hi, Rodney Phillips. I have the same view. I would ask that you do not spend my tax dollars on this, whatever transpired, for I feel it's unfair and just gives everybody kind of it's not a comfortable situation.
Okay.
My opinion.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, it's a pretty important item. I just want to make sure the public has full opportunity to weigh in if they're going to. So, Richard.
I really can't believe that we're going this route. This whole affair, and I've said this before up here, is rife with conflicts of interest. Just by the fact that the three of you were sued, there's a conflict of interest. I'm not saying that in the negative sense of conflict of interest, but the fact that you're in the lawsuit means that your views are going to be tempered by the fact that you're in the lawsuit. Mrs. Mejia has recused herself for other reasons. One thing that concerns me here is that we've gone back to our city attorney who gave us the advice in the first place that got us in the trouble. Now it's come out today that we've spent $30,000 or $60,000 on payments regarding the lawsuit, which we were told by the city attorney at a separate meeting that there would be no payment due from the city. The big question in my mind here is, if this trash contract blows up, the big question is who gets blamed. That's really what this is all going to be about at the end, because we're going to have a trash contract, be it with the current company, a newer company. The trash is going to get picked up, but the political fallout is going to be heard in this city for years. And it bothers me in particular that the city attorney says, in the context of ongoing settlement negotiations, the existence of dissent on the council could be perceived as a weakness. JM and Art DeBolt and every high school student who sits here knows that there's a division on this council. And the fact that you go back there and there's a division, and my God, it's 3-1. What were the chances of that with the makeup of the council? But for that to be considered divulging anything, everybody in this city who pays any attention knows that there's a division on the city council. But for the city manager to say that in the context of ongoing settlement negotiations, the existence of dissent on the council could be perceived as a weakness that could be exploited by the city's legal opponents, thus increasing the risk of harm to the city from the disclosure, seems more to me as a way to cover the city attorney's prior mistakes, in my opinion, that were made in giving advice to the council. And I really question why we're going this route with our city attorney, who it seems should almost have been recused from this matter herself in giving this opinion. But it seems here that to blame Councilman Kuzumoto for any problems with the settlement is just way off base. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard. Any other comments?
First of all, I'd like to state that my name is Lisette Gabler. I live at 12481 Rainier Circle in Los Alamitos. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Originally, my comments were addressed to Councilman Kuzumoto, but since he's not here, I would like to say a couple things. First of all, what this man did was he sat under confidential circumstances, and then he admits that he wants the other side to win. That's crazy. That's like he was some sort of double agent, taking the information from your closed-door meeting back to Ivler and DeBolt. That's nuts. And to say that he shouldn't be prosecuted, that's ridiculous. First, then he took money from Mr. DeBolt. That's the one thing that Councilwoman Mejia kept saying all the time about Mayor Edgar. You took money from Consolidated, and then you were on business with them. Well, Mayor Edgar, he waited like 4 years before he did it. Councilman Kusamoto, he couldn't wait a month before he started doing this. And at the same time, Councilwoman Mejia, you did the same thing. You went to the first meeting, the first strategy meeting, and then you recused yourself. And you took money from DeBolt too. So, and then you had the guts to get up here at the last meeting and state that Councilman Kusamoto, that you told him that he shouldn't have been part of those meetings. You have an oath to uphold, lady. You do. And you didn't do it because you should have gone back to the city manager and told her what this man had done, and you didn't do it. As far as I'm concerned personally, you need to be prosecuted too. As far as Councilman Kusamoto goes, I feel he should resign and not cost the city all this money. I don't want to pay for it, but if we have to, then I say get a special prosecutor, because Ivler and his group says that the DA is dirty because he's supporting the mayor for city council, which is ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't matter. Somebody supports suddenly they're dirty. It's nuts and it's stupid, but that's how I see it.
Great, thank you.
Since my name has been bandied about and I'm actually here, let me be the first to say I'm not going to be discussing anything that was in the city attorney's decision. I'm not going to be discussing anything that has anything to do with the lawsuit because I'm here as a taxpayer. I'm not here with my citizen's hat on. I don't want to be here with that hat on. So let's try to separate who I am. I am here as a taxpayer. I am deeply concerned as a taxpayer that we seem to have two standards. Mr. Edgar, when we had BB&K, you had a standard way up here on what you expected and how you treated Dean Derlick. Every time a bill came, you were right on him. Why did we get this? What are we paying for? You were zero in. You earned that tax fighter award that by going after Dean and holding his feet to the fire. We have a totally different standard with our current city attorney. Never has any bill or invoice been pulled. Never have you questioned it. Never has anyone on this council questioned it. I've heard a number of residents come up today and say, why carte blanche? I have deep concerns. These concerns can go back to when Madam Poe had a potential conflict of interest on LaSalle Boulevard, and you asked the city attorney, okay, can we go to the FPPC? Can we question it? I believe when she was at Sierra Madre and city attorney there was a similar conflict of interest on property within a zone area. She went to the FPPC. The FPPC gave a ruling. She already knows the answer to that question. You have property in the area. You can't go out and have somebody go out and say, it's worth this much, and if they do, it'd still be worth that much. You can't do that. The FPPC already answered her 2 years ago. Why didn't she tell you that then? I get the feeling that in this case we're seeing what's called churn, where chaos brings litigation, and litigation is used to enrich attorneys. And I don't want to see my tax dollars enriching law firms, any law firm. I said before we ever got into anything, I didn't want to ever see this happen. This is my tax dollars, and I really would like to see them spent better. I've heard people say that there's crimes that have been committed. If there has, then let's bring the Attorney General in. I was misquoted as saying that I think the DA is dirty or whatever. No. The DA has, and the Orange County DA has supported you in your congressional campaign, Mayor Edgar. He has made it quite clear that there's a potential of a conflict of interest if the DA were brought in. The Attorney General is the proper authority. If there is anything to be questioned, please, I ask, I beg, I plead, bring in the Attorney General. I request the Attorney General. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to come and take a look at everything and anything. Again, back as a taxpayer. Not anything to do with any litigation, just me, J.M. Ivler, taxpayer. Let's just get this over with. I don't know how many times we've all said we want this to end. We all want it to end. Let's get it done. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. We'll get that in.
Name is Chuck Sylvia. I've lived in the same house in New Dutch Haven since 1963. I've paid a hell of a lot of taxes over those 48 years. When somebody sues the city, I expect the city to defend themselves. Ivler's concerned about the money that's being spent, drop the lawsuit. You know, during my 26 years on the city council, where I served with 15 or more people, there was not a single incident of a Brown Act violation. Kusamoto's, I've only been on the council for 1 year, and he violates the Brown Act as it pertains to the sanctity of closed sessions. It could be that the information that he's put out is providing the people who's suing the city or suing me on the trash contract info that they can use in their behalf. There is a radio talk show host by the name of Bill Handel. He's on the radio every weekday from 6 to 9 a.m. He has a special show every Saturday morning, same time, called Handel on the Law. Bill is an attorney and gives anyone calling his show on Saturday morning free legal advice. A question often asked by many that call his show is, what is this lawsuit all about? As Bill says, it's always about the money. They try to convince you that the lawsuit is about the common good or on behalf of the people. But it is always about money and how I can get rich quick. Take the trash contract lawsuit. They try to sell us on the hype that it is for the people because they think we're stupid. But I can read trash bills that I get. I compared the amount I was paying in 2009 with last month's trash bill. And I can see that I am paying about $3 a month less today than I did in 2009. The lawsuit is a way of lining their pockets. And I don't want information coming out of a closed session that's going to help them line their pockets. I'd say that you can compare Kusamoto's actions with compare him with Dean Gross, who sent a cartoon over the internet, the same cartoon that thousands of other people did. Dean did not break the law, but did create a controversy. He saw the damage he had done to his fellow council members and the city and resigned from the council. If Kusamoto was half the man that Dean Gross is, he would do the same, resign from the city council and save us all this shame. Now, legal opinion's been given that he has broken the law. You people on the council took an oath to obey and support the law. It is your duty to forward this to the proper agency and let them remedy the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the council. And Jerry, I'll start with you.
Mayor, I'd like to ask that we observe the rotation as we have in the past.
Are you going to pass at this point?
I'm going to go in the rotation, yes. which would put me last.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns too. That city attorney, that figure keeps coming up, and would you please explain that? The $30,000 through $60,000. I keep hearing that.
And I think there's some confusion. I believe there's more than 1 month's bills on the warrant register this month, and that may be part of the confusion. But in addition, probably the simplest way to say it is, when I was brought on board, the budget for legal fees was lowered. We are within that budget. We consistently review the budget. We meet the budget. You guys set the expectations. You direct us and tell us what to do. In addition to that budget, there is litigation. Obviously, there is a cost to defending the city. However, that cost is being reimbursed by Consolidated. If I at any point said, as someone from the audience stated, that the city would not be paying this, I'm sorry, that was shorthand for saying the city pays it and Consolidated reimburses it. So yes, you see the check cut from the city, but it gets reimbursed by Consolidated. And Consolidated has reaffirmed once again, in fact, they filed their own notice of appeal in the case and indicated that they intend to continue to fight this case independently of whatever the city does. So they have reaffirmed that they will continue to pay the city's attorney's fees.
So at this point, we aren't out of pocket for anything in reality, other than what we've already budgeted for in this year's budget as far as legal fees go.
Right. You have your normal city attorney's legal budget that is apart from litigation, and as far as the litigation goes, Consolidated is reimbursing the entire cost.
All right. So hopefully that'll put some of the fears to rest that people had and did bring up. Back when all of this started, I was the mayor, and we were getting ready to go into closed session, and I was caught totally by surprise, along with everyone else, by receiving a letter. And at that point, we turned it over to the city attorney to do some investigation, to find out what the facts are behind it. Can someone do that? Can a city council person recuse or excuse themselves from any kind of closed session, and do they have to have a reason for it? Well, she did a great deal of research on this, and all of it is in our report right now. And a lot of things are coming to light. In fact, that we even asked her to check and see if we were okay with the FPPC as far as being back there in closed session and discussing this. And the results of that, city attorney, were?
It's such a complicated situation that it's a little hard to encapsulate all of the advice in one sentence. But the FPPC said that the allegations in a complaint do not create a conflict of interest, and that there is no conflict of interest by virtue of the fact that Consolidated is reimbursing the city for the costs of the defense.
Great.
So.
All right, thank you. The reason I said that is because we have to rely on council, and we have to go back to the FPPC on quite a few different issues. We do have a responsibility. We've got a responsibility to the citizens, and we also have a responsibility to do what's right as far as the community goes, and legally what's right too. So it was stated up here earlier, we're not attorneys. We don't know, but we go to the sources to find out. And the city attorney did her due diligence in investigating this, going back through and trying to find out exactly where we stand on all of these different issues. And I honestly believe in the report that you had sent out, pretty much outlining what was in the letter, where Councilmember Kuzimoto states that he was in the minority viewpoint, that did have an effect. And you even went on farther in your report. Furthermore, in the case of Councilmember Kuzimoto, made his disclosure just as a city began sensitive settlement discussions. in the context of ongoing settlement negotiations, the existence of dissent on the council could be perceived as a weakness and could exploit the city's legal opponent, thus increasing the risk of harm to the city from the disclosure. This disclosure is also particularly suspect given that one of the two plaintiffs in the litigation was a significant, perhaps the largest contributor to Council Member Kuzimoto's campaign committee. And I see that. It's in our staff report right here where a very substantial donation was made by Mr. DeBolt to the campaign for neighbors for Graham, Mejia, Kuzimoto, and Sheraton for City Council. It concerns me because we have to be cautious of that. All of us have to go through ethics training. We either went to Sacramento or we had to do it online, but we know you don't do that. It's very simple. And so when you have a vested interest like a campaign contribution that close to you being involved in any kind of discussion, yeah, it's something that has to go back to the FPPC. And again, I'm looking for some kind of a solution to this because I feel that it did jeopardize the negotiations a little bit. And the other part of it was, and you went on to say, as with the disclosure of the existence of a split among the council members, the disclosure is significant opinion of litigation strategy potentially damaging the city's position in settlement negotiations. Now, forget the lawsuit. We were involved in settlement negotiations at that time. This kind of information going out just threw a wrench into any kind of settlement negotiations. It doesn't give you a chance to be able to get in and negotiate fairly whenever your opponent suddenly thinks, oh my gosh, I've got the upper hand now. So again, that was jeopardized too. Going through this entire thing, it threw a wrench in everything that we were trying to accomplish, and we, as city council people up here, have a responsibility, and our responsibility is to make sure that everything is done according to the rules, according to the FPPC, no Brown Act violations, no legal problems, and God only knows we have people that check on everyone up here with a microscope. Well, what's more important than that is we have to check on each other too. And this is something where we are checking on each other. This is a checks and balance process that we're going through right now. We have an obligation to obey and support the law. And again, I'm concerned that we might have, by this letter going out, by all of the possibilities of a Brown Act violation and or whatever other legal problems that might occur out of this, compromise the appeal on the lawsuit and the lawsuit itself that's going on against the city right now. So I'm concerned about confidentiality. I don't like to see it broken. I don't like to be with people that I can't trust at any time because of that confidentiality. And again, that concerns me. That's pretty much all I have right now.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Mejia, would you like to go now, or are you going to continue to wait?
I'm just wondering, Mayor, we established when Mayor Stevens was in place that we would go by a rotation. We've done that. We've done that up until tonight. So if we're not going to do that, then I'd like to ask that we remove that rotation from the back if it has no standing.
Okay. Would you like to go next?
No, I'll go with the rotation.
Okay, Marilyn?
Thank you. It has already been stated here this evening that on December 5th, I was not at the council meeting. I was out of state. And I will say again, as I did in our last meeting, that when I found out what took place, I was absolutely shocked. I was on the city council for 12 years. I was off for 2, and I'm back on now, beginning my 4th year in this term. And in all of that time, there's never been a time when I've seen any council member purposely violate the Brown Act. As I stated at our last meeting, the Brown Act is what we live by. That's when we take the oath of office to uphold the laws of our city and the laws of our state and our federal government. One of the laws that is inferred is that when we are in closed session, we are in closed session, and that is governed by the Brown Act. We are not to disclose anything ever that takes place there. Now, as I said before, it's hard. That's not easy. A lot of things are discussed. And let me take that back. There aren't a lot of things to discuss. There's only a limited amount of things that go into closed session. And one is issues that have to do with personnel, and the other is litigation. Am I correct? That's the only 2 issues that we go into closed session.
There are a few others, real estate negotiation, things that don't come up very often, certain kinds of emergencies or security threats, but the things that come up most frequently are litigation and personnel.
So to see that a council member took the time to sit down and he said, I gave it considerable consideration, and typed a letter and handed it to the press, gave it to our mayor, disclosing what took place in closed session. For me, it doesn't make any difference whether that had any effect on our settlement agreement or anything like that. It goes to the core of what being a council member is and what our city council represents to this community. And that is that we uphold the law. And this law has been broken. I read the letter, and I could see that there were 3 instances where there was disclosure. And then after reading what our city attorney sent to us, I had actually didn't include the fact that our own code was violated. If we do not take this a step further and have a ruling other than by our attorney, because that's what I'm hearing this evening from some of the people in the community, if we don't take it a step further, then we are all as guilty because we are not upholding the law. And I think I know that we wanted to find out. We were accused of having a conflict in being involved in these negotiations, the 3 of us, because we were named in the lawsuit. And so we asked to have the proper agency look at this and make a ruling, because we didn't want to be in violation of the law. And we got back, as was stated, information that we are not in violation. So I think that it's very important for Councilmember Kusamoto for there to be a ruling other than by this body or by our attorney to have this looked at. Maybe we've all been living all these times by too strict of a Brown Act. I don't think so. But I think it's important that we find out for sure and and then we just let whatever agency we ultimately take this to decide what the action should be. I don't like this any more than anyone else in this room does. And I'm sorry that it happened. I'm sorry that a lot of things have happened in this past year. I think that we all want to see an end to this trash controversy, and we want to go on and do what is in the best interest of this community, and that is to make our community better. And that hasn't been happening because all of these other things have been getting in the way. We have a general plan that we're working on. We have some opportunities for some great things for the people of this community, and we need to be spending our time on that. So I'm not pleased that different transactions have taken place, but at the same time, if we don't pursue this, then it just makes it easier to break the law again. It makes it easier, once you've done it once, it makes it easier to disclose what happens in closed session. And all of the former council member, Chuck Sylvia, has spoken, came up and spoke, and in all the years that he was on, and all the council members that he worked with, all the council members that I've worked with, everyone has held this Brown Act to high esteem, and I have to do the same.
Great. Jerry, let me just an administrative part, just out of respect. The follow the rotation was something that Ken had initiated during his stay as mayor. I'm going to go through, and at the end, I'm going to make the final comment. So I'm going to give you one more opportunity to make a comment at this point. I would just ask you, please, if you have a comment.
I have absolute respect for the mayor having the last word.
Sure.
I will ask, though, that if there are some issues that need to be addressed, that I'll give a second
Sure.
round.
Fair enough.
I just want to frame this to make it very simple for the people who are watching who have come down. There are actions that we can take as little as saying to Mr. Kuzumoto, we feel like your behavior has been inappropriate. We'd like for you not to do that, and we move on from here, which is what we should do as neighbors of each other and council members that serve on the same dais. There'd be no more money spent. Mr. Kuzumoto would realize that he's made a mistake, which I don't know that I agree with that statement, but if he did, now he knows and he won't do that again. There were a couple of things said earlier that I would just like to clarify before I get to my final comments regarding some of the issues with Brown Act violations. As was stated earlier, one of the concerns in the letter that Mr. Kuzumoto gave to the council members and to the press was that there was a split. He was in the minority. Well, that's been known since we ran for city council, and one of our biggest issues that we were addressing with residents was the trash contract. So to say that him saying that there's a minority simply doesn't affect this lawsuit at all. And I think that this is really reaching to look for a reason to punish Mr. Kuzumoto. The second thing that was mentioned that is a violation was that, Mr. Kuzumoto wasn't looked at by all of the community as someone who should be in those meetings because he received money from Mr. DeBolt for his campaign. Well, I'm not sure where that is foundational because I myself told Mr. Kuzumoto that, look, there are people who don't think that you should be in there. There are people who are glad that you're in there because they feel like you're the one lone voice with regards to the trash contract. So again, this issue I feel is moot because it was something that I said to Mr. Kuzumoto. So why that would be a Brown Act violation, I'm not sure. One of the things city attorney, with regards to financial gain, does Mr. Kuzumoto, by the statements that he made, stand to benefit from the statements financially?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So any financial gain that might be proposed here as far as the lining of the pocket, someone said that earlier, and I just want to be clear that there's no money to be made. I believe that Mr. Kusamoto is a moral man, and he felt that he had some concerns about what was happening in closed session and simply just wanted to remove himself as to not be painted with that same brush. Once again, I don't speak for Warren. These are just my assumptions as someone who knows him and has known him for many years. Mr. Sylvia stood up and said that in the entire time that he was on the council, I believe he said 26 years, that there had never been a Brown Act violation. And I'd like to take you back to a time when we were addressing an issue where a private resident was asking to use a kind of a road that our public works people use to park their vehicle. And generally, we don't do stuff like that because it can create a potential for us to be sued. But in the letter that we received when this item first came before us, I believe it was, what, Troy, about 4 years ago? There was a letter as part of the documentation that we received that said, regarding this issue, 3 council members came out to the gentleman's house, looked at the access road, and made a decision right there on the spot that that gentleman could use that access road for his personal vehicle. That's the first Brown Act violation that was not addressed. And the only reason I'm trying to bring these to mind is because in the past, when mistakes have been made, we've said to each other, hey, you know what, that was overstepping your boundaries. So make sure that you know what you can say and what you can't say, and what you can do and what you can't do before you do it. Because a Brown Act violation says that you can't get a majority of the council together to make a decision when they're not sitting up here in front of you on this dais representing you. And what that did was, in that, created a Brown Act violation. So I would have to differ with Mr. Sylvia regarding there were no Brown Act violations in his tenure. Then also we have Mr. Gross, who was our prior mayor, and who sat in on closed sessions and immediately left the closed session with regards to the...
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I know I'm out of order, but I do not feel that it's correct that I be slammed and brought up in this particular case. There was no Brown Act violation. I was never charged with anything. And I don't appreciate being
I'm getting to that.
slandered in that particular
I'm getting
process.
to that. And actually, the reason you weren't tried was because when I brought it up to the city attorney, he said it's not really good for the community.
Hold on just a second. Just so we get control of this before it gets out of hand.
Then why'd you let him speak?
I appreciate you making your comment, but right now public comment's closed, and so at this point, I'd like you just to go ahead and continue.
Thank you. So we're all sitting in the council chambers, back in the back, closed session. We're discussing the police department and what we're going to be doing with the upcoming contract with them that has to do with their pay. Immediately leaving this, he went and spoke with a police officer regarding the issue. That police officer went to another council member and asked, what's going on? Why are you guys going to do this? And the council member said, how did you even know that we were discussing those issues? Well, Mr. Gross had told him. That's Brown Act violation number 2. Once again, when I approached the city attorney, he said, you know, it's really bad for the community to do these kinds of things. It costs a lot of money, and it's just a black eye for the community. And I said, you know what, you're absolutely right. I'm going to go ahead and let this slide. Just make sure you mention to him that we can't be doing that. Because I do believe, as Maryland does, that if we're going to be in those closed sessions, we need to be able to rely on the fact that those issues are going to stay within the council and not be made common knowledge. The third Brown Act. And Mayor, I hate to do this and put you on the spot, but we're looking for the way we're going to proceed with Brown Act violations. And our mayor sits on a commission where he is, I believe you're the vice chair at this point, went into closed session to discuss raises for people that work for the sanitation district and voted to give them raises. And then it was found that that was a Brown Act violation. Now, we didn't come and say, we want to have him tarred and feathered. We want to have him brought before. We want litigation to be taken. No, we didn't do that. We supported you because you made a mistake. And so we have 3 separate Brown Act violations. None of them were ever addressed because the people had the decency to turn to the other person and say, I realize you made a mistake, but let's keep this from happening again, because that's the respect we owe each other. Warren's a pretty new council member, and I know that the Brown Act was one of the most difficult things for us to really wrap our mind around, because you have the lawyer saying, well, you can talk to people, but you can't come to a decision. But if you do talk to more than 2 council members, then it looks a certain way. So the Brown Act isn't always very clear, especially if you're a new council member. So I would have to say, if Warren erred, then it was because of his newness as a council member. We all have missteps in our service here. He's an honorable, moral man, and I think that to take this further, it just looks like retaliation, and I don't want that to be the feeling that moves forward from this. And so I would just say, my last little comment is, let ye who has not sinned cast the first stone. And I'll go ahead, Mayor, and pass it back to you.
Great, thank you. City Manager, if you can see if Councilmember Kusamoto would like to address the council.
Mayor, just out of curiosity, shouldn't you give your items of what you feel before Mr. Kusamoto addresses the council?
No, actually, I meant to bring him up forward, so I want to make sure he gets to say his piece. And just as you had requested, if anybody has comments after that, you'll have an opportunity
Mayor,
to
may
address
I just
them.
add one last thing? If I did not, I believe I'm the largest contributor to our campaign. So to give you the impression that somehow Mr. DeBolt, who is party to the lawsuit, is somehow being paid back for his contribution, that's just a silly statement, and it's completely untrue.
Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay. City Manager.
Warren says, thank you for the opportunity, but he's going to decline at this time.
Great, thank you. Okay. So the final perspective that I have on this is that, obviously this is a tough situation. As it's talked about, anytime that you have a situation where you have to look at a fellow elected official and try to make a determination of what's going on, we've been trying to be really careful, delicate, and looking at this. Like I said before, the council meeting that we had before, it started getting a little bit, heated up. And again, we tried to take that into a non-emotional state and give it to the city attorney. It's interesting when you look at this and you say, it's interesting that even the comments that we've gotten tonight is that, for me, making decisions like this, I try to look at things binary. It's either yes, no. And so, you look at this, and was the Brown Act violation conducted? Before you qualify it with anything else, as he's a new council member, he didn't mean it, it's not so bad, everybody should know this if they watch the count. Any of those qualifications, you got to kind of put to the side and just say binary, yes, no. Was our city attorney looked at this issue and says, look, is there a Brown? That was the question by the council. We weren't qualified to be able to technically evaluate the comments that were made. That's why we gave it to the city attorney. So, for me, the answer in the binary question is yes, no. The answer is yes. Then you sit back and you look at this and, you can give a lot of, examples of, is it bad? If you're a white collar criminal and you end up taking something from a company and you don't kill anybody in the process, are you better than a guy that actually goes and holds up a liquor store and actually commits, a different crime that's actually more visible to the community? Those are all subjective points that also would need to be weighed off by people that are far more qualified than any of us up here on the dais to be able to determine how material is this issue. So from my perspective, it's binary. Was the Brown Act violation, did he violate the state code? Did he violate city ordinance on disclosure of confidential information? Before I qualified any other way, the answer is yes, based on what the city attorney said. Councilmember Kusamoto, at least through the newspapers, what I had read, says he welcomes the opportunity to get his name, cleared through this process. So I do think that the bottom line is, it starts at a point that you have to kind of draw a line, whether it's with your family members, a neighbor you really like, a council member you serve with. You have to draw the line, or the line continues to move. And so when we look at this thing and we say, hey, look, where do we go from here? We've got an issue where I've got council members up here that don't want to go into closed session with somebody that they feel that now they're having trouble with on trust issue. We can't uphold our duty for a city and a city council to be able to go into closed session if we have lost the trust in the back room. And again, as immaterial or subjective as people want to qualify that, let's leave the qualification of the materiality to people that are far better trained at this and that would look at it. Going through this, it'd be easy to get caught up in a lot of the details and going back and forth and getting into it. But I just think that we just very calmly, unemotionally need to look at this and say, okay, binary question number one, was there a Brown Act violation? I think the answer is yes. Question number two is what comes next? If we believe that this is a Brown Act violation and that it needs to be pursued, not only do we owe it to the taxpayers, the citizens of our city, but we owe it to Warren to either clarify and clear his name and find out if it was material enough. So, I personally believe that we need to move forward with this and move this. I think that we probably need to, it was suggested by some of the people through public comment that there's a concern even at the city attorney level. Anybody that touches this, it seems like right away you put your hand on it, you get nailed as conflict of interest. There's been more people determined to have a conflict of interest in this than any subject I've ever come across since I've been in the city. So at some point we got to start realizing City Council was elected to handle these types of issues. They're in closed session. They're trying to deal with it. You can't conflict it out to nobody being back there. So when we've had issues, we've tried to get the guidance that we're required to by the state through the FPPC, which governs the way that the City Council is supposed to behave and whether we have conflicts. And I think that we've tried to do that. So with that, I think that what would be the fairest thing to Councilmember Kusamoto in this is to evaluate this item from a criminal and civil prosecution perspective by having a third-party city prosecutor get involved with this and to take this down the path of either through the district attorney or the attorney general and move forward with this item. Because, the hard thing about this is that it has a very severe potential course of actions. I mean, if you read the staff report, it goes as far as, we'll look at it and it may or may not reach materiality, and then at least we've got the answer and Councilmember Kusamoto can clarify and we can move on, or it can go as far as the removal of office. I mean, this is a serious issue. Whether you believe that the content subject matter is material as a layman, the consequence of violating the Brown Act, if you look at the history of why this thing was formed, is very significant. And it didn't sit there and just cross hairs of saying, how bad did you do it? Again, it goes back to a binary question, yes, no. It's to prevent people like us from trying to, elected council members and anybody in the elected realm, to not disclose and to maintain that we have the confidence on any issue that could be much more material than this when we're in the back room, that we do not breach the trust that should be back there to have an open discussion to defend the entity we've been elected to protect. So, with me, that's where I'm at with this item. And, and with that, if anybody has any other comments, I'd like to hear those and or entertain a motion to move forward on this. Anybody have any comments?
I have something if no one else does.
Jerry, go.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the second opportunity to speak. I appreciate that. Now, we just heard you say that Brown Act violations are very serious and that this is a binary approach. It's either a yes or a no. So I guess my question is to you, were you found guilty of a Brown Act violation on the sanitation district?
No.
No. So the report in the newspaper was incorrect, that you voted in closed session and it was not appropriate and it was a Brown Act violation. And then when you came out from closed session, you voted differently.
See, Jerry, when you look at something unsophisticated and you try to generalize, you don't understand the conditions of what was going on at the Sand District. You probably should have done some more research on it. So the reality is, what we're talking about here is a potential issue where there is a civil and criminal penalty for the disclosure of confidential information, not a procedural issue when an item went to vote. So the absolute answer, and I'm just telling you,
Well, the
absolutely
Brown Act
not.
violation. So I'm just asking: is there a double standard where we're gonna pursue the Brown Act violation to punish Warren, but we're not going to look into what remedies might be taken with regards to your actions on the sanitation district?
No, there's no double standard.
There's no double standard. We're just going to punish Warren, but not you. We talked about this in the last one. You said you feel like there's a loss of trust in the back room. But when I brought the issue regarding Mr. Gross to you, and you and I agreed on it, you didn't have a problem with trust then, and he still came into closed session, and there was no action taken. I'm just wondering why there's this double standard all the way around. To me, it seems very personal. There are council members who have been named in the lawsuit, which would be very frustrating, and I don't blame you for being upset. But I don't think you take this opportunity to try and lash out and punish him when you yourself have been party to knowledge of Brown Act violations and have done nothing, and potentially, whether it's administrative or not, you're part of a Brown Act violation on the Sand District. So my concern is that this is really just an attempt to find cause to remove Warren from office because he doesn't agree with the majority. So that may not be the fact, but that's my perspective as a council member up here. And I would just encourage you in the community, the residents who came forward and said, spend no more money, we have that option. We have that option to say, okay, we think you did something wrong, don't do it again, let's move on. Instead of dragging it out, using the attorney, paying extra money that the taxpayers have already told you in number that they don't want you to do. So I'll go ahead, Mayor, and give it back to you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Ken?
I do.
Sorry.
We keep hearing that comment being made. You don't agree with the majority. That doesn't necessarily mean that the minority is correct. And so if you're not subject to looking at both sides of things, shame on you. I think you might have a problem. But I keep hearing that bantered around, and I'll be honest with you. I think that we do the best job we can, and we do the right thing for the city to be able to save the city money, and again, do it ethically too. Back to the FPPC, it's something where we have the responsibility to report things as we see them. We have to be able to trust everybody that's up here to do the right thing and to say the right thing. You can't keep saying the same old lies without somebody catching up to you sometime and saying, wait a minute, that was a lie. And just repeating it's not going to make it true. And so we've heard that quite a few times throughout the years. We've also heard comments that people don't have faith in the city attorney. Well, fine, let's get outside counsel. Simple as that. And this way it's that part of it's solved. And I'll be honest with you, in the news article, Councilmember Kuzimoto himself stated that I welcome an investigation. Well, the investigation is not to punish, it's try to find out the truth. We all have to live by it. We have to wake up in the morning and look in the mirrors. So let's find the truth on this and see if that donation made by, to me, on the 460, it looks like the major contributor to that pact had a bearing on the way he was perceiving or even voting on things in the past. So, I'm concerned about those issues, and that's something where, again, we're not attorneys, we're not the experts, but I think it's time that we do call the experts in to find out, because, again, we've got this litigation going against the city that should have stopped a long time ago, and it hasn't. So.
Right, thank you. Marilyn?
Yes, I just have a couple of comments. There's comments made about something that happened when two of us sitting here, three of us on the council, were not present or even elected in the past. And of the four of us sitting here, two of us were not on the council when this allegation about Mr. Gross. So I don't see the relevance of it because we had nothing to do with it. I can tell you right now, if I'd been on the council and that had happened, I would have made a big deal about it because I take this job very seriously. I respect the people in this community, and I realize that not everyone in the community voted for me to be here. But once you're in this seat, you are obligated to represent everyone in the community, even the ones that didn't vote for you. And I have all respect for everyone in this community. And if I don't uphold the rules that govern this, then I'm letting this community down. I just think that we need to find out by an outside source whether there was a Brown Act violation. It looks as if there is, according to what we have. There were several. And then we need to live by that. And whatever the consequence, we need to live by that. So I will make a motion that we proceed. We have 7 options here. Option number 2 is establish a policy or code of conduct for the handling of confidential closed session information and adopt specific rules for all future meetings. Now, before I make my motion, I would like to ask about that because isn't the fact that we have in our code that there will be no violation of the Brown Act in closed session, isn't that enough? Do we need to have more? I guess I'm asking the city attorney.
Some councils find it helpful and some don't. So I can't really speak to that for you. Some councils do have a more detailed code of conduct that discusses what is appropriate for individual council members to do when they are acting outside the scope of the body as a whole.
Okay, well, because this has happened, and it's obvious that the training, the ethics training, the going to city council school, which we've all done, evidently didn't delineate it enough. Maybe we do need to do that. So I think that probably is a good idea. So I will include number 2, establish a policy of code of conduct for the ruling of confidential closed session information and adopt specific rules for all future meetings. I think that I would like to retain a city prosecutor to seek a court order, writ of mandate, or injunction preventing further disclosure of confidential closed session information by Councilmember Kusamoto. And then number 4, direct the city attorney to refer the matter to the district attorney. These, can we, again, without making this the motion, can we do all of these, or do we have to do just one, or what is the procedure? You know, this is, I'm sorry, this is new to all of us.
Obviously, number 1, which is take no further action, is inconsistent with the others.
Right.
Apart from that, you can do any or all.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we do number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. Do I need to say what all of those are?
No, it's in the
It's
staff report
delineated here.
and in the memo.
Right.
May I ask for a point of clarification? If we refer, and I support Marilyn with number 2. I think it never hurts to have extra training, obviously, when you have a situation like this happen. If we were to refer this matter to the Attorney General, couldn't we wait to see what the Attorney General has to say before we go forward with all this other stuff?
You can take it in any order you want. I don't know what the Attorney General's time frame is on these things, and Mayor Edgar used the term materiality earlier. I think I would say it in terms of prosecutorial discretion. Each of these enforcement officials has prosecutorial discretion and can decide that even if there is a violation, it's not something they choose to pursue at the time because of budget reasons, because of materiality reasons, because of other things. So you may find that all are interested in this, and you may find that none are interested in this. It's entirely their decision,
Would
and
it
it
vary?
depends on what they're focused on at the moment. Sometimes, for example, the grand jury sometimes focuses on particular issues at particular times. And
Sure. So my question then, I guess, is if the Attorney General were to find no reason to pursue, is there the potential that the district attorney would find a reason to pursue? Or would they be of like mind? Okay, so they could come up with different outcomes.
Sure.
Okay.
Alrighty, so we have a motion on the floor for items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I think, oh, go ahead.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Can I make a substitute motion?
sure.
I just recommend that we go with 2. I don't think 3 is necessary. I think this situation is more than been, informative enough for him not to make that potential or the statement that's being made that he's created a Brown Act violation. I don't think that's kind of redundant to me. I say we go to the Attorney General, so we would go with 2 and 5, and then if we need to, if the Attorney General finds grounds for there to be some kind of process taken with regards to this, then we move forward with the others.
Okay, that's a substitute motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Okay, since the lack of the second, I'm going to go back to the original motion and the second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item.
We going to bring Warren back?
Yeah. Angie. Next agenda item, item 10B, City Council member appointments and reappointments as representatives to other agencies and city ad hoc committees. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, Angie, to yourself at this point. We have a little bit of a change in procedure this year as we're going through the appointments to different boards and commissions. So, Angie, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over. Maybe you can explain that a little bit.
I'm going to let Wendy explain and take you through the process.
Cool.
Okay, Honorable Council, right now we'll be doing the commission appointments. This is a yearly thing. We usually do it the first meeting after every council meeting, after the council reorganization. The thing that differs this year is on our appointment list, we have included stipend information. There's a new ruling that if there is a stipend involved, you cannot vote for yourself for the position. And this goes for the delegate and the alternate. If the council has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. So let's slow that down just a little bit. So because I just want to make sure everybody understands what the situation is. So right now, there's an issue working its way around the county, and it has to do with whether people that get stipends on these boards and commissions, whether they can vote for themselves. And so
if I can just be
Please.
even a little more precise about that, It's whether they can participate in the decision about their appointment. You can't vote against yourself either.
Okay.
You can't vote for or against based on a very recent and very controversial new FPPC decision that came out.
Okay, and then the item that was kind of added that we need to make sure everybody understands is that Wendy had talked about the person that's actually a primary and the alternate. So let's talk a little bit about the alternate. So if you have a board or commission where somebody is saying that they were interested, they're appointed, or they put their name in, and then they get a first or a second, they need to leave. I want to make sure that everybody's clear how the process is going to happen, because it's a new process.
They don't need to leave, they just need to recuse themselves from the vote.
Okay. And then the alternate comes up as the secondary thing, and then it goes the same way. They're not voted on together, they're voted on separately.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, Marilyn.
And if it's going to be discussed, they do actually have to leave.
Oh,
I'm sorry. But it's a conflict of interest like any other, and the FPPC has decided to treat it that way. And as long as we're laying it out, I'll just explain that there is an exception in the Political Reform Act that says that income from government agencies does not count towards conflicts of interest. And on that basis, most people treated this as not a conflict. Then the FPPC issued a decision that said, despite that exemption that they had, that's in the statute, they had a regulation that says that it could be a direct personal financial interest and therefore a conflict. So it has to reach to the level of $250 in a year. So I believe you have at least one that doesn't reach that threshold. But anything that reaches that threshold is then a potential conflict under this decision, at least until it gets sorted out in the courts when somebody else challenges it and not us.
Okay, so, and then just the process that would happen if there's somebody that's voted and a second's received, the person would get up, and then at that point, they're voted on yes, no, and then a second. What if you have two people that are potentially put forward?
You just do one at a time?
You do one at a time, or if you have a motion for two people all in one motion, then both people would step out.
I'm sorry, so if you have two people.
All in one motion. For example, I don't remember if there are any where there are two appointees or an appointee and an alternate, then you'd have two people, both would step out, and the remaining three
Like the school
would vote.
district working group is 2 appointees, no alternates.
But there's no stipend for that.
No, I'm just saying that,
Right.
I'm using that as an example.
So the clunky system that we're about ready to give a shot is going to be a blast. But so before that, let's just get down to specifically those ones that we're going to have a good time on and identify them, and then let's handle the other ones first just to get them out of the way. So, Wendy, if you want to go ahead and identify I think the 2 or 3 that we're going to be having a good time with later.
There's actually 4 commissions that receive stipends. One of them's already been appointed at a previous council meeting of the vector control. So the 3 that are up right now is the CJPIA has a $50 a year stipend.
That one doesn't reach the threshold, so you're safe to vote on that in your old procedure.
I do have a question. I didn't realize that that it has a stipend. Is that true? Are they
Yes.
sure?
For the yearly meeting, the council member that attends that gets.
Because I attended, and as far as I know, I didn't receive a stipend.
Did you sign the little thing?
Yeah, I signed in.
No.
Oh,
There's
but
another thing.
it says you
There's another thing
that you,
says if you don't sign the stipend form, they don't give it to you.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm sorry, Warren.
No, that's
I should've
fine.
told you that.
No, that's fine. I
Somebody
didn't.
there should've told
I
you
didn't
that.
realize there was a stipend, nor did I want it. So
No.
that's fine.
And that was the same thing. I
Okay.
didn't take it either.
And the Orange County Fire Authority has $100 per meeting per stipend for no more than 3 meetings per month. And the Orange County Sanitation District has $212.50 per meeting with no monthly limit. So those 3.
Already?
Well,
So
2.
the OC Sand District, the Fire Authority, and it sounds like nothing on the California JPIA.
Right.
Okay, so it's those 2. So we'll go ahead and handle the other ones first. So we've got let me just go down the list and see if we have any issues. We've got the League of California Cities. The delegate's Warren. The alternate is Jerry. Warren, would you like to continue to be in that appointment?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Jerry, are you interested in continuing as the alternate?
You know, I'm going to go ahead and give that up so someone else has an opportunity.
Sure. Is there anybody else that's interested in the delegate or alternate before we would go into that any further?
Don't everybody jump at once.
I'll take that as an alternate if nobody else wants it.
Okay. Okay, and I'm going to try and go all the way through these and hold it together and vote as one if we can. And then if it gets crazy, I'll break them apart and we'll go further. So the League of California Cities, Orange County Division, the delegate is Warren, and the alternate is Jerry.
Mayor, we're no longer a member of the the Orange County Division. We switched over to the Association of California Cities.
Alrighty. So you'll remove it from this list.
This,
in the future.
the list that you're looking at is from 2011. The list on the back is actually the new.
Oh, okay.
Has all the new.
Thanks,
commissions.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I thought that we were still members of the Orange County Division, so.
We're still members of the state division.
Okay.
Not of
okay.
the Orange County.
Oh, the Orange County Division itself as.
League of California Cities.
League of California Cities,
yeah,
Orange
okay.
County
So that's
Division.
state, right?
Okay. So the League of California City Selection Committee is the mayor, and so that would be myself. And the alternate would be, basically, we'd sign a letter of delegation to every council member. So the bottom line is who's ever there can vote for the city.
Right, if the mayor's not there.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Westcom, this is the West Cities Communication Center Joint Powers Authority with Seal Beach and Cypress. And Marilyn is the delegate. And Marilyn, are you still interested in that?
I'm fine.
And Ken Stevens is the alternate.
I'm okay on that.
Is there anybody else that might be interested in one of those two appointments? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and just keep going. The Orange County Library Advisory Board, currently Marilyn and Ken. And I would just say that was one of the best appointments that I was ever on. I would just plug for it. Anybody's interested. I did my tour. Marilyn, you've been doing yours. But do you still
And I
want
enjoy it. I do.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to sell it for you.
No, it's only 4 times a year, and our library is very important.
Okay, and Ken, you're the alternate?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody interested in potentially being on the library board? Alrighty.
Sales job didn't work.
No, Marilyn
Well, I mean,
wanted it.
if you guys want to stay, I don't,
Yeah. The GMA, or the Growth Management Area Group Number 2. This was a board that was actually we used to work with potential funding with the county, and right now we have Marilyn as the rep, and this one also does not meet too often. I think it's an ad hoc.
And can I ask, Stephen, do you know, this, my understanding was that this growth management area was only in that first phase of the OCTA.
The Measure M funding.
Right, and that they were going to, did they decide to get rid of it for this new?
For the renewal of the tax, I'm not clear on that. I knew it existed with the first one. We'll find out for you on the second one, whether it still exists.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine to do it if it still exists, but
Okay.
my understanding was with the renewal of that, they weren't going to do that anymore.
Okay. And Ken, you're on there with her. You okay to continue?
Okay as the alternate.
Anybody else interested in GMA? Alrighty. Next, OCTA I-405 Policy Working Group. Marilyn, you've been on that. Jerry, you're the alternate. Are both of you guys?
I'm
okay?
good.
If someone's interested, like I said, I'm just trying to give everybody an opportunity to serve. But if not, I'm fine.
Okay. Seeing no one else, we'll keep it the way it is. The California Joint Powers Insurance Authority. Warren is the primary and Ken is the secondary. Warren, would you like to continue with the JPA?
I certainly would.
Okay, I think you've been doing a great job on that. Ken, would you like to continue as the alternate?
Sure.
Is there anybody else that is interested in potentially in either one of those two positions? Alrighty. Los Alamitos Unified School District Working Group. Currently, it's Councilmember Graham Mejia and Poe. Are you guys still interested in
I'm
continuing?
still interested.
Okay, does anybody else want that? Good. Alrighty. LATV Ad Hoc Subcommittee.
That doesn't really even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't read the right list, so I'll take that one off.
No, I'm just saying.
No, and then the Annexation Ad Hoc Subcommittee, are we still meeting with that group? I know it's been, I think we are. Is anybody, right now it's myself and Marilyn. Is anybody interested in being on that?
I'd be interested in being on that one.
Okay.
If anyone's looking to
I
step
would
away.
be fine if to take my spot if you'd like.
Okay.
I'm fine to stay on it.
Okay. The General Plan Ad Hoc Subcommittee, Warren and myself, and in the past that also incorporated the Downtown Revitalization Project. Warren, would you like to continue to?
I would actually like to offer that up to somebody else. I'm not sure how much we're going to be, meeting on this one, but I'd like to give someone else a chance.
Okay. I'm also open to anybody that would want to participate. I will say we haven't been utilizing this at the council level, but if you talk to Steve Mendoza, there's a hardcore, heavy general plan working group going through the city now, and I do see this ad hoc subcommittee is going to be the group that's going to go over the finish line with the general plan update. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity to kind of help from the council's perspective of pushing and assisting, facilitating this general plan all the way through. It's the biggest thing we've got, one of the biggest things we've got going this next year. And like Warren, I'm open if there's anybody else that's wanting to be on that.
I am if no one else is interested. I don't want to take it from anybody if you're
okay.
wanting to stay.
Weren't there some issues about conflict on this?
Remind me, city attorney, on that.
As you get farther into the process and get to the consideration of specific policies or goals relating to particular areas in town, you run into conflicts with property ownership. So there is the potential for conflicts with this committee. And some council members will be able to participate probably in all aspects of the general plan, and some council members are going to have to recuse themselves as to some aspects. We don't know the details of that yet because we don't know we're not to the level of the policies at this point. We're still fairly early in the process stages.
Should we wait? I'm just saying, because if there's no use appointing people if we're going to be conflicted out,
Oh, we just leave it.
Yeah. Sorry, Warren. We're still on
Oh.
for a while. So that didn't move anywhere at this point. And then Vector, we've already taken care of. So we've got 11 board appointments that we've talked through. I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Let's go ahead and first one up here, Orange County Sanitation District Board. I'm the delegate. Councilmember Stevens, Sarah Ken is the alternate. I'm interested in continuing. So with that, is anybody else interested in taking that position?
Do we need to make a motion? or what?
I'm interested in that.
I'll make a motion for Troy Edgar.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to the Mayor Pro Tem, because I guess I cannot participate. Do I have to get up and go, or?
I think we need a second to the motion first.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, can I do that? Since I'm the alternate?
We're not voting.
We're not voting on you.
As I understood it, the motion was for the delegate only.
Right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
So what do we do now?
You have a 2-2 split? See if there's another motion. The mayor
Well,
can come back.
I heard,
The mayor can come back.
Yeah.
Come back, Mayor.
Come back.
so I heard that Councilmember Graham Mejia would like to be considered for this, so I'll nominate Councilmember Graham Mejia.
Is there a second? Mayor?
Okay. Since there's no second, then I'll go ahead and entertain a motion again. I guess I would say at this point, I would put forward, I am the vice chair of this organization. I'm about ready to take over the chair job. I'm going to ask one more time. And I guess at this point, what we had to talk about is if we're not able to reach, if we reach a conclusion that it's a draw, it's a 2-2, what would be the next steps at that point?
Without reviewing the rules of the fire authority and their formation documents, I can't tell you exactly whether
The Sand District.
Oh, sorry, the Sand District. I can't tell you whether the position expires and you would be left without a representative, or whether there's some carryover provision. But I would just urge the council to try and reach agreement on something.
Okay.
And-
So,
Well, I'll make a motion again for Troy Edgar, and I would like to say that I know that he has put in a lot of time, and it's very difficult for somebody from a very small city like we have to go through the chairs there and become potentially the chair of that organization. That is a huge organization, and I think it would be a sense of pride for us to have Troy there as the chair. That just doesn't happen in these organizations. It always goes to the larger cities. And so I think the time and effort that he's put into this, he deserves to have this ability to chair this organization.
Again, that's a motion. The mayor's conflicted out of discussing that motion, but is there a second?
I'll second it.
Sorry for the jack-in-the-box routine, Mayor, but you have to step out again. And Mayor Pro Tem, you run this discussion, and
There is a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
So I do have a question. So in terms of these boards that we serve on, I believe there ought to be a policy that says how many terms we're going to serve on those boards. And then I think that would provide fair and equal chance for the rest of us to attend or to participate on these boards.
Right,
So
yeah.
But we don't have a policy.
I
on our-
understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, so that's something, I don't think we can.
Well, and
put a
if I might,
policy
oh, I'm sorry.
In place now, that possibly is something that we should entertain in the future. That we institute a policy where there would be a specific amount of times someone could be on one committee, on one.
Mayor Pro Tem, if
outside
I may.
commission.
My input on this is what I was saying earlier. We need to give everybody the opportunity to serve. And many times, these ones that receive stipends, they get locked up by the same people all the time. And I don't mean to say you're misinformed, but we have had other council members who have been put in positions of authority there also. So I don't know that it's exclusive to Troy. Don't get me wrong, I think he's exceptional at what he does. But I've had interest in this for a couple of years. Troy actually offered it to me the first year, and then when I said at the next meeting, after your offer, I thought about it, he expressed to me that, well, I've already made my mind up and I'm going to keep it. So I understand that. He was right in that. But what I'm saying now is I would like my opportunity to serve. And that's why I don't mean to oppose Troy. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the fact that I, too, am one of the more senior council members and have never had an opportunity to serve on this board and have expressed interest. So would like a fair shake.
Well, and I guess my comment to that is if you go through this, I'm on a lot of these boards and none of them have a stipend. And in all fairness,
I don't believe I said that about you.
no, I'm just stating that. I am serving on several things here, none of which have a stipend. And so I think that I agree that it's good for everyone to have the opportunity, but Jerry, you were just given the vector control, I believe, a couple of meetings ago, and that has a stipend. And you are guaranteed of being there for till the year.
For 2 years.
For
yeah.
2 years, yes. So,
And if you go back in the history of these reports, I've never once sat before the vector control, never once sat on a commission that this council has given me the opportunity to serve on where there was a stipend either. So whether vector control has it or not, that's irrelevant. I'm interested in this one, and I just wanted to give my arguments as to why I thought I had an opportunity, I should have an opportunity.
all right. Do you have any comment?
Quick question. Did the previous council give you the opportunity at all to go on any of these?
I kind of made the same mistake. Not this council that I'm currently seated on with yourself and Marilyn, and before when Dean Zarkos was here. I made the mistake early on of saying, if somebody else wants that, go ahead and take it. But I've found now that if I'm not a little more assertive, then I never get the chance to do to give the service that I would like to.
Oh. So the answer is you never sat on any of the boards, and even on the previous council?
Not on these, no.
Okay.
And as you know, I've tried repeatedly to get on the Orange County Fire Authority, but the majority of the council saw fit to put you on there, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, then perhaps if I can add to the motion, which then may be a way forward, I'd like to nominate at the same time Councilmember Graham Mejia as the alternate. And if I get a second, then I believe she'll have to recuse herself, and then we'll have 3 of us up here that there will not be a tie. So I'd like to offer that up as a motion.
I was really interested in the seat because as the alternate, there's no opportunity to weigh in or have.
Well, I don't know if I can.
Councilmember Mejia, I don't think you can discuss or lobby on that motion. So
I'm fired.
The question is either as an amendment to the current motion or as a substitute motion. So is it acceptable to the maker and the seconder, or is there a second for it as a separate motion?
Well, having heard what we just heard, I guess it's, do you still want to make that?
I still make the motion that I would nominate Councilmember Graham Mejia as the alternate. And then I don't know if it could be like a compound motion. And so we have
Make one motion for both the member and the alternate.
But then.
And both of them would recuse themselves.
Right, I would just get up and leave.
You see what the FPPC has left us with here?
Easy, yeah.
This is the same problem that agencies all over the state are having this year.
I guess it's up to you, Ken.
Yeah, I don't mind seconding that. Putting her on as the alternate, but can we talk? Or does she have to leave?
She has to leave once
Once you make a motion.
There's a motion and a second.
Well, the motion, and we seconded it, yes. Goodbye.
And then you can discuss the motion amongst the 3 of you.
Okay, so we have a motion that Mayor Troy Edgar will be the delegate, with Councilmember Jerry Mejia as the alternate. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 There.
And no opposed. All right. Thank you, Warren.
Okay.
But she did state she didn't want it.
Well,
I could have even voted no and still would have lost. It still would have happened.
All right.
And we're back.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, Orange County Fire Authority Board. Right now, we have Councilmember Stevens and Councilmember Graham Mejia as the alternate. Councilmember Stevens, would you like to continue on that?
Yes, I would, because I also stand on the Budget and Finance Committee, too, on that.
Okay, Councilmember Graham Mejia, do you still want to be on that as an alternate?
I'd like to be the representative. Ken's already served on it for 2 years, correct, Ken?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this, again, is the same thing. Trying to get into the seat where you actually go and you're involved. This is the way it is every time. So I'm interested in the position as the chair, or what was the delegate.
Okay. Is there any other people that are interested in this seat?
I guess I could throw my hat in there too, and then that would really throw a kink into it. I'm not going to do that. I just think that it's really important that when we have positions where there are stipends, that there is not one person having one position, more than one position with a stipend. I think that it's being kind of greedy, and I understand wanting to have a voice in how things go, but being as I will nominate. But having said that, I will nominate Ken to be the delegate for the Fire Authority.
Actually, what I'd like to do is, I guess in the same vein, I'd like to nominate Ken as the delegate and Jerry as the alternate, and I'd like to get a second on that.
I'm not interested in the alternate position. I've held that, I think, for 2 years now. I'm looking to be the delegate.
Okay. Anybody else interested in being the alternate?
I'm fine with being the alternate.
Okay, I'll make a motion to have Ken and Marilyn be the delegate and alternate respectively. Do I have a second on that?
We can't.
I think we need to take them individually like we did the other.
Okay, we'll go, I mean, I can already tell you mathematically where this thing is going to end up. So at this point, then, we'll go forward through the procedure. We've got Councilmember Stevens as the delegate on this board, and I'd make a motion for him to continue to be the delegate.
And I'll second.
Okay.
All right.
Just for clarification, Marilyn, did you say wanting to be on more than one board makes me greedy because there's a stipend included?
I guess that wasn't really a very nice word, Jerry. I'm sorry, but I think that it should be spread out.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me refresh everyone's memory. For the past, I believe, 3 years, I've been interested in this position, not because of the stipend, but because of the interest I have in CERT. I agreed to be the alternate because when we spoke last time, they said that is the next person who would progress into the seat. Ken served on this board for 2 years, and generally, that is the limit that people have served on boards. Troy, you've been given a gift because you get to be on the sanitation district, which really, I mean, that receives the most money of any of them. So I think that without any regards for the stipend, this is something that has been near and dear to my heart because of the disaster preparedness and the involvement that I have with that through CERT. So I would just ask that for this year, I would love the opportunity to serve as the delegate. I've waited more than 2 years, and I think that it's time to give someone else the opportunity.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments?
Yes, I have perhaps a rather indelicate question about the whole selection of Ken Stevens or even Marilyn for these type of positions. So procedurally, you know, there's an election coming up in November, and what happens if Ken should run and not be reelected or choose not to run? Then what does it do to the seat there? Then the alternate then takes over? Is that kind of procedurally what happens?
No, every year we vote just like we are right now in January. And I mean, that's something that every council member deals with on a year-on-year basis.
That's a December, then we have no representation in December?
No. After the December, it's black. Most
Okay.
of these boards are black. I think the Fire Authority meets quarterly, actually, but their meetings in late November after Thanksgiving. And then, the elections, the outcome, the result, and then the January. That's and believe me, you see a lot of turnover on those boards because of it. But I don't want to interrupt you in your train of thought there.
No, that was my question, so I think you've answered my question, so.
Well, and Mayor, if I may, with regards to the stipend, the amount of time that I would miss from work being an independent contractor, the $100 doesn't even begin to touch that. So that's not the interest.
Okay. Marilyn, did you have any comment?
Well, I think that whether Ken and myself are up for reelection should have nothing to do with it.
I understand. No, that was my question, so,
Right.
and I understand,
Yeah.
so.
So I call for the question.
Okay. Well, can I make a couple comments?
Sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, something that's interesting that we need to think about too, from a city view. Jerry's right. I've had an opportunity to be on a lot of different boards. Some of them funner than others. It was interesting that when you get on these boards, the dynamics changes because you're no longer part of one of 5. You're one of 24. You're one of on the Fire Authority, one of 26. And then you go to these boards on day one and you show up and you got county supervisors, you got city council members. You've got a whole hierarchy of, like on the Fire Authority, they've got, kind of a quasi view. This is just my perspective, but there's a South County coalition of council members, San Rancho, Santa Margarita, all the way. I mean, a lot of folks that are out there that look out for South County as kind of more open space type fire prevention, protection, et cetera. And you've got North County, and then you got everybody in between. So cities, from what I can tell, develop strategies on how to deal with these boards, and they're thought through, and some of them aren't. And for example, on the sanitation district board, Huntington Beach has the sanitation plant in their backyard. Right, it's in Fountain Valley, but Plant 2 is actually right on the beach in Huntington. Based on the way stuff goes downhill, the sewage, a lot of the piping and the infrastructure goes right through Huntington Beach. And so, if you look at this from a material perspective and you talk to Mayor Hansen down in Huntington, he's made it a very focused initiative that he really wants to see Huntington Beach have a different strategy on how they deal with the sanitation district. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because, on Huntington Beach, what ends up happening is their rotation is whoever's mayor sits on the boards they want to sit on. So they never form a consistent leadership role in any of the boards because every year or two, people are moving through them. And, that's a good equal opportunity model. And that's one that we're kind of talking about up here on one side of the dais. But the challenge with that is that no one, here's one of the, 5 largest cities in Orange County, a lot of political clout, and they don't flex their muscle in influencing a $600 million a year organization that runs mainly through their city to get into the sanitation plant. Mayor Hansen looked at this issue and says, I really think that we ought to readdress on how, as a city, we staff these boards and commissions so that we have more influence. The other dilemma to look at is take a city like Tustin. Tustin, like Cypress, has term limits, 8 years, 2 4-year at the city council level. So you get elected, you finally can go through this chaos to actually get on one of the boards, and then you very quickly got to figure out through the 24 if you really want to have some sort of influence in this. Very quickly, you got to read the organization, show leadership, and try to move up. In any one of these boards, and I'm talking about Fire Authority, Sanitation District, and Jerry will find out in Vector Control, there's a hierarchy of subcommittees. Then you got to go to the subcommittee, get appointed to a subcommittee, and they have chair and vice chairs. And then you work through trying to show leadership there. Then you potentially could become the chair, vice chair of that organization, and eventually the lead. I don't know within Los Alamitos, maybe Ron Bates or Bob Wallstrom, who was the OCTA, we had an opportunity, or maybe even Chuck Sylvia, to really, as a small city, influence these big, large organizations. I mean, look at OCTA. We don't even have a play there. It's one of the, quite honestly, Measure M came through, and we are constantly fighting for funding here to try to get Measure M money. And we have Catella, Smart Street, Measure M focused area, and we can't, because those boards are voted on population, and then the county supervisor gets one seat, and then there's a voting contingency based on what size you are. And if we're 2% of the second district, we're never going to be on that board. So the only reason I'm explaining this to the community, to the council, is that, look, there's a lot of things that we need to look at for the city, but we ought to be trying to claim ground where we actually have claimed ground. Ken is on the finance committee. The finance committee within the Orange County Fire Authority, there's the executive steering committee, which is about 8 council members that are on that, and then the finance committee. There's only 2. Ken was picked to be on the steering committee because he's been able to actually try to work on pension reform and some of the union issues that he has some pretty strong opinions, and he's been helpful with management and union to bring those 2 organizations together. They have got a significant pension problem. All of us talk to Ken about his role on that fire authority, what he does to help the city. But, when you look at this, we are, like I said, 34th smallest city in Orange County, yet we are one of the most influential when it comes to the fire authority board. When it came to making decisions on, what was going to happen with the reserve program, what's going to happen, that with this fire station 17 over here in Cypress, how much deployment of the assets do we get for public safety in here as a board member on that subcommittee? Ken gets to fight to keep new equipment, proper staffing levels in this part of West Orange County. It's something that I've been on that board. I didn't make it to one of the subcommittees, and it's a tough one. So, and it's a tough one too because there's a lot more external influence, and you've got to invest time in getting to know the South County guys, or you're going to probably get killed off in that board, and I just didn't have the time to make the investment. Sand District was no different. So the only thing I'm saying is, look, at some point we got to step back from some of the conflicts that we have up here and take a look at the city, claim the ground, get behind the people that are from our city to try to have influence as a small city. Being a part of this process as the JPA or joint powers to be able to provide fire protection and this very unique structure which formed in 1994 after the bankruptcy. I mean, it is a significant issue, and as a small city to be able to work into that, I just want us to realize what we're leaving behind. When we don't make these appointments, if we invest in people and they're able to move up in an organization, we should get behind them. Look, the fire authority, I couldn't move up. That I moved out of the way. And believe me, I am like Jerry. I wish that I was the public safety guru. My Navy experience, all this, public safety stuff that I've been involved with. But I didn't feel I could influence it. So this one to me is really important. I think that we got to look at this strategically. We need to look at it as a city, as leaders for our city, and try to come up with a strategy that best suits. And sometimes sitting back and saying stipend this, stipend that, or hey, I haven't had a chance, I need a rotation. Well, that's a strategy too. And we need to kind of balance that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to have a rotation on things and be able to go through. And but again, I just say let's make a conscious decision. If we're not going to appoint people, that these have repercussions. I guarantee you, if we go through a snafu on this with the fire authority, somebody goes into that mess right now. They are actively trying to pursue Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley, Santa Ana. Potentially they're going to lose, some North County cities by La Habra Brea to LA County. I mean, right now there's some strategic problems going on, and this pension issue is boiling. I vote to have somebody at the table to protect our interests as a city that pays into this. So, again, I would ask the council to please put aside this for this issue. Let's try and get behind Ken and see if we can support him through this, because I think, we need him there We need to continue to be able to help the fire authority move forward. And you know, if you're not with me on that, make a few calls. Call Todd Seymour next door in Cypress. You know, go down and talk to Levitt. Go talk to the folks, Dave Shaver in Stanton. Ask Dave Shaver. Dave Shaver's been on the fire authority for 18 years in Stanton.
Since it started.
Yeah, and he is hardcore. I mean, he is really hardcore. Ask him who he thinks the top 6 people are on that, and I guarantee you, Ken Stevens is going to be one of those names. So let's make a conscious decision up here if we're not going to get behind Ken or not. I'm very supportive of this. Like I said, I've been close and touched the fire, and it burned, and I moved away from it. It's not something for me, but you know, I just wanted to put that out there because I think strategically we need to look at this and our appointments, and they're much more than just joining, you know, in with the fun and trying to say, hey, I got that checked off. I was a part of this and a part of that. I think these are really important, serious appointments that we need to really take take time to consider what we're going to do.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
I would buy that argument if when the reorganization for mayor and mayor pro tem came up and it was handled differently. And I'm not going to whine about it. I don't have a problem with it. You made your decisions. But what I see is a clear effort to benefit certain council members and to push by the wayside other council members. So you can argue that Ken is pivotal, but I take offense to that because in essence what you're saying is I don't have the same opportunities to become pivotal if I were to be the representative. And I could say that, you know, I would like to be the delegate and have Ken Stevens be the alternate, and then he can mentor me.
Like I said, I got a chance too, Jerry, and didn't measure up. I mean, for me, my own personal standards, I did not measure up to be able to and so, like I said, if somebody, though, jumps into the mix and they've been able to prove, I mean, what I'm telling you about his assignment to the Finance Committee is verifiable. You can go online and see
and
it.
I understand that, but so what you're saying is, and I just want to be clear about this, that you're so set on denying me the opportunity to be the delegate that you would rather have no one there than have Ken there, because you just said it's important for us to be able to have the opportunity to weigh in on these issues, but yet you're not saying that you'll support one of the council members unless you can have who you want.
I'm not saying I'm not supportive of you, Jerry. I'm saying on this one I'm supportive of Ken because of the position that he's earned while he's been there in his tenure, a very short amount of time to be able to bridge the gap between management and labor. Very tough. Like I said, I couldn't do it, and it's something that I think that right now there is a significant financial crisis. You know, right now, without getting into too many details, that fire authority has an $88 million budget for the people, and it's a $200 million a year organization, and it has a pension that's paying retired firefighters that deserve it, and that value's coming up to almost being $88 million. So they're going to be paying more to the retirees here in a couple of years actuarially than they actually pay to maintain. Those are real issues, and those are issues that Ken has taken 2 to 3 years to put his head around and be an influence. Look, if we made this decision tonight that you were the person, you wouldn't have a seat at the Finance Committee, no matter what. Either would I. It has nothing to do with our qualifications. It's, you know, they look at the pecking order and they say, okay, you know, who can add immediately that's got the historical knowledge of this. So mentoring you in that process is not mentoring you to do the job that we actually have an influence in now. And that's the challenge I have.
Well, you were just saying statistically, you know how this is going to go. So
well, I thought I would give it a shot.
My only deduction is that you're saying that you would rather have no one representing us, which would be a larger detriment than to not have who you would like it to be. And I'll go ahead. Let's just I call for the question.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. We'll go ahead and go for the vote on this. We have a motion on the floor for Ken Stevens, and I believe Marilyn second.
I second, yes.
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
No.
Abstain? Okay.
Well, hang on, Mr. Mayor. I'm still considering all what you said, so I will vote yes on this one in favor of Ken.
Okay.
Okay. Ken and
alternate.
Okay.
They have to vote on that separate, right?
Thank you.
That's a separate motion.
No, I know, I just wanted him to know that it wasn't staying the same.
Okay, next up on the docket here is for the alternate. Jerry, all of everything that's been said, I'm going to offer you. Would you like to stay on that as the alternate?
Gee, you're going to offer it to me? No, I think what I'll do is, since there's no natural progression in this, I'll just go ahead and let Marilyn take it.
Okay. Marilyn, do you want to be a part of it? Well, let me ask. I mean, anybody. Warren, Marilyn? Do you have any interest?
No, I have no interest in the.
Okay, yeah. I was
Well,
pretty
being
clear.
as I did serve 10 years on, from the beginning of the Fire Authority, I do have a lot of knowledge about how it was formed and how it works, and I was chair of the Finance Committee 3 times, so I would be interested in being the alternate, so. I guess
Okay.
we'll leave.
You need a motion and a second, and then Marilyn steps out.
I'll make a motion for Marilyn.
I'll second.
Okay, Marilyn.
Goodbye, Marilyn.
Okay, being that we didn't have any other nominations and it seems like we defaulted to Marilyn on that one, I would ask, let's go for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And okay. Marilyn, you can come back in. Okay. Okay, so I believe that is all the council member appointments. City manager, just to keep me on, I kind of lost track. Are we okay?
I think we're good. Yes.
Okay, great.
Covered.
Next up is the council announcements. Just a clarification, because Councilmember Mejia had brought this up, the rotation, this, that, and the other. Honestly, my situation is I would just start at one end and go through, and at the end I'm going to close. So, Jerry, just going forward. And I don't want to make it a complex thing in the future. So, would you like to start now, or I'll start on the other end?
And so we're removing the rotation completely. Is that's what you're wanting to do? Okay. Yeah, mine's going to be very short, an attempt to get out of here. I attended the vector orientation. It was very informative, and looking forward to the meeting this Thursday. And that's it.
Great. Ken?
I attended the Budget and Finance Committee with the Orange County Fire Authority. Nothing really reportable, but the Orange County Fire Authority is in negotiations right now with Santa Ana and a few additional cities, and hopefully we'll be able to put a few things together here within the next 3 to 6 months and show a little more stability.
Great. Anything else?
That's it.
Great, thank you.
I enjoyed my Christmas and didn't do anything beyond that.
Marilyn?
Thank you. Friday, January the 6th, I was pleased to attend the Los Alamitos Area Chamber of Commerce installation breakfast. Judy Klabouch mentioned that this evening. It was a very well-attended breakfast, and congratulations to Judy on 2 years of being at the helm there and doing a fine job, and congratulations to John Osborne of the Alamitos Eye Care, who is the new chair of that organization. I went online because my gosh, half of the audience was up as the board of directors, the new board of directors, and it was like looking at who's who in Los Alamitos in terms of people that are serving on that board. And that's great to see that many people from this community interested in our Chamber of Commerce and interested in serving. Wednesday, January the 11th, along with Councilmember Mejia, I attended the Los Alamitos Unified School District Working Group. It's very informative, and Angie put together I thought, a very good synopsis of what took place. So, Angie, I'm just going to read it because I think it's important for the community to understand that we we are meeting now every other month, and being as the majority of the open space in Los Alamitos belongs to the school district, it's incumbent upon us to have a good working relationship for our programs. And we did have a good meeting with Sherry Kopp, the new superintendent of the school district, and her representatives. And among the things that were discussed was the Oak Gym utilization plan during the modernization of the LA High School gym. That really took a major amount of work between Angie and the school district and our staff to change the schedule, because the field, the gym modernization and also the field usage plan during the modernization of the Los Alamitos High School field, the main water line, and that's going to take place over the summer of 2012. The entire back portion of the high school is going to be under new irrigation, and there's a lot of work. So part of it's going to be done during the main line is going to be done during the spring break, and then the rest of the work will be done during the summer of 2012. But also, there will be 4 months that the high school gym will be down for construction. So there had to be a lot of wiggle room and a lot of changing of usage time in the Oak Gym, because that's where those sports will be practicing. The city and the district staff will continue to work together to meet the needs of the district and the community this summer, when the entire athletic field at the high school will be renovated. It'll take 10 weeks. It is anticipated that the high school football team will be moved to McCullough Middle School to start their practice the last 2 weeks of August. And there's a lot of details that will continue to be hammered out, but we are working really well together, and our staff and the school district staff they'll make it work real well. And we talked a little bit about it is a problem when people no longer have children that live in this community, no longer have children in school. They lose that link in terms of what's happening in the school district. And so we talked just a little bit about some ways that we might be able to add some of the things that happen with the school district to our website, so that when people go on our website, they might want to get onto the school district link and be a little bit better informed as to what's happening in our school district. So it's always fun to go to those meetings. A great group of people, and we were successful. I think this has already been spoken about this evening. I also have had a lot of people. I have a lot of friends, and as we all do, that live in Rossmoor. My husband and I actually watch the Rossmoor Service District meetings, and we're totally aware of the problems that are being contemplated, and I believe that it will be really good for us to have that on our agenda. The shops at Rossmoor, the traffic condition, and as you had said, Troy, the housing situation. The low-income housing situation. I also had brought up several months ago about additional bus shelters. There's 2 specifically, and I know that our engineer said that he was going to do kind of a cursory look at where all the bus shelters were and the cost and so on. But the one in front of the hospital, we don't have we just have a bench there. And then the one on the south side of Catella at between Lexington and Saratoga, there's on that corner. there's a number of people that are there every day. They leave, they work at the base, and they come and they sit at that bus stop. And luckily, we haven't had a lot of rain, but during the summer it's hot, and when we get rainy season, I hate to see them sit there without a shelter. So I'd like that to be looked at as we come into the mid-budget review to see if we can do something about that. And then also, I know that I believe Troy is going to talk about this, but I was so sorry to hear of the passing of Pat Logren, our longtime resident and owner of Fiorita's Pizza. You know, I can't remember a time when Fiorita's wasn't here. And it was always so fun to go there. It's family atmosphere, and have Pat come to your table and talk to you. And it was just made the evening or whatever meal much better. So he'll be greatly missed. And certainly condolences to his family and the staff of the restaurant. I know they're going to miss him a lot. Okay.
Great. Attended a Orange County Board meeting.
Troy.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry about that, Warren.
I don't want to go last, okay?
Yeah. That's
So
not a problem.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to wish everyone a happy new year, and looking forward to this year. It's going to be very interesting, no doubt. And as far as city business, really nothing to report. I am involved at the high school with my son. He's on the basketball team, so we had some travel ball happening over the winter break. The thing on a personal note that I have to say, I just can't brag about it enough, we had solar panels put in our home, and we sized it to be 109%, 109% of our usage. So I'm watching on a daily basis how much power we're generating. And the real cool thing is that I used a local contractor who has a shop over behind the Sizzler up there in near the high school, and he had a very good deal and provided very good service. If anyone's interested in finding out more about what he did for us, I'd be happy to discuss that with you, but I'm just really tickled pink about this thing. I'm looking forward to the summer to see how much power we can really generate on this thing. So with that, back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So Orange County Sanitation District Board meeting, Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, something I just wanted to bring to attention. So Monday coming up here, Angie, I've got a board meeting to talk about kind of an update on the Coyote Creek project. So it's T-minus 6 months now until the potential funding goes away. So I would just ask you and Stephen, if you can, to kind of get back on board with the WCA, the Watershed Authority there, and make sure that they're focused back on this project after a very happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. But they have a lot of other priorities right now. They continue to get a tremendous amount of requests for more bond money for projects that are further along. And there is discussions that is probably going to end up taking place on Monday, whether they're going to allow projects in process to now ask for extensions. Our strategy on dealing with this was to get this project as far along so that it would be kind of unstoppable and it would be underway because it's easier to then try and ask for requests. And the ultimate objective was to be done by June, bill them so that we can get our $1.1 million. We're going to have to make a decision at the end of February, I think, at the council, and I think we ought to probably put that on the agenda of what do we want to do depending on where we're at. And I want you to use that marker with the consultant and with Edison and with the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy as a kind of a marker with them that the council's going to have to make a decision at that point on the progress. The status is that we're waiting for the Southern California Edison and to get this thing through the PUC. We continue to have challenges. So the city staff has done everything humanly possible. We've got the lease agreements through the approval process. The drawings are done. Everything is there. But there may be a point too where we take a look at whether we would hire a consultant to help us, or more specifically a lobbyist to help us to get this thing kind of facilitated through the California Public Utilities Commission in Sacramento, because we're really struggling with getting it through. And it's like trying to get an item on our agenda, but staff isn't really receptive to get things on that have to do with land use at the PUC. So we got to kind of try and work it with potentially a lobbyist to see if we can get this thing on the agenda. Once it gets on, I know it'll get passed. It's specifically the lease and the approval of the lease, and for us to use that. So February is what I'm using as kind of my personal go, no go, and it would be very helpful that potentially we look at spending money if we can't get it going any faster. And I just want to give everybody a heads up. Definitely, Pat Loughran is my neighbor, so the owner of Fioritos. It was funny as, if you can find it funny, Pat lives right around the corner from me. So when I moved in over in Greenbrook, Pat's known me for 20 years. When I, maybe longer than that, I got out of the Navy and lived in Long Beach, and we used to come over with relatives that live in El Dorado. And so they've seen my kids grow up, and he knew everybody. And, years ago, went through a divorce and moved into Greenbrook. And but Pat has always known my wife with my kids. And so every time I would see him in Fioritos, or my ex-wife would see him in Fioritos, he'd come up to the table and he would go, he'd come up with my ex-wife and say, it's so funny is that every time I'm over by your house, I see this strange blonde lady that keeps coming out of your house and getting into Suburban. So I don't think he made the connection that I was remarried to someone else, and he used to always harass me. And my ex-wife Jan and I just never had the courage to tell him that we didn't make it. So it was kind of interesting to kind of go. And when I ended up being mayor, he used to put jokes in my mailbox, and he would always tell me to loosen up and try to, but the jokes were probably not something that I would be able to pull off. But and then he would always lobby. He was not a big fan of Prevesa going in. He told me he thought it was a direct conflict with his business, and I should do everything I can. And I, said, look, you're in Orange County unincorporated. I'm fighting for Los Alamitos businesses, and I used to give him a hard time just going back and forth. So it was a great loss. His funeral was on January 7th, and over at the El Dorado Church, and if the number of people are a measure of who comes to your funeral, that place was packed, and it was like a homecoming. His family. It's just very interesting to hear the story behind Pat. I don't know how many people go to Fio's, and he knew everything about you, but it's very interesting how little we really knew about him. And I've had people coming up to me going, Pat Fiorito died, and it's like his last name is not Fiorito, And so it was just interesting, very neat person, very neat family, and he's going to be very much missed. I also wanted to congratulate John Osborne from the Chamber of Commerce, our new chamber president, and to congratulate one more time Judy Klabouch for 2 years in the chamber during one of the toughest economic times that we've had, in trying to help out the businesses and keep the city on course. I think that we have a very unique relationship as a super small city, is that community development can only do as much as they can do, and we have a symbiotic relationship with the chamber to kind of help us promoting the city, promoting better business, and again, I would encourage everybody. They have the meetings that are over at the Courtyard Marriott on Fridays once a month, and I would encourage everybody. They're starting to really get popular, and people are starting to come, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And I would just encourage anybody, if you're interested in starting a business in Los Alamitos, especially one that does enter business to business, it can't be a better place to build a relationship. And there's people from all components, all parts of our city staff, to be able to hook in to find out how to do business here, other businesses to give you advice and counsel. And then they're always looking for volunteers to contribute and help, not only in just money, but time. And that time, when you're doing that, you're actually making a business relationship. So I would just encourage everybody to get involved with the chamber. I also wanted to acknowledge the owner of Maderas. Art is a longtime proprietor here in our city. And, he had called me at the beginning of December. Matter of fact, the night of the Seal Beach Christmas parade. I went to a chamber meeting in the morning. He goes, Troy, I'm trying to host veterans and active duty soldiers in my restaurant on Christmas Day, and I can't seem to get any traction at the base. Can you help me? He goes, I've got people to volunteer. I've got people that have given me money, but I can't seem to find soldiers to fill the seats over there. So he called me. I had an opportunity that night with Lieutenant Colonel Russell over at the base and said, God, we got a problem. Somebody wants to feed soldiers. And the next thing you know, she got involved. We got the VA hospital involved in Long Beach. And, they fed how many soldiers there, Angie? It was like, about 100. Yeah, it was 100 people. And then, people came and volunteered on Christmas Day and brought gifts. So not only did they come for food, but they got a lot of stuff, and they got a lot of care from the community that was out there, and all that because the owner of Madera sat back and said, hey, I really want to do something for the soldiers. And if you ever meet Art, he's so, he cannot take any sort of accolades. He's a behind the scenes guy that just wants to run a business and help people. And so I would just encourage everybody in the community, if you go into Madera's, tell Art thank you. Let him know that you heard about the great things he's doing and standing up and helping the soldiers and the families. The VA hospital got involved, and the VA hospital is really dealing with some pretty hard situations of some of our veterans that came back not whole, and they're dealing with some real tough stuff over there. And it was really good to see a big group. Isabel Duff, who's the director of the VA hospital, she got involved and got her public affairs person, and so the majority of the people, the soldiers that came over, were actually from the VA. And it was just a great event. And so we got an opportunity to honor Art. Angie, thank you for going over there. We had Colonel Toys from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer. His staff was there. Lieutenant Colonel Russell, her staff. The VA, her staff. And a couple of us from the city to thank them. The last item I have here, first of all, I guess second to last, the shops of Rossmoor. Angie, I think you've got that as an agenda item. We'll bring that back. I think it's an important issue. The thing that I was trying to weigh off is, we're Los Al, and I just wanted to reaffirm that, Los Al as a city, not just a lot of folks from Rossmoor that are volatile, because I watched those meetings too. They're not just a little bit upset. They're very upset. I think our folks have been calling very, trying to lay it out and say, hey, look, I'm as mad as they are, but, can you guys step in? Because, we've got a city council. You guys need to get to the table. And I think, as Jerry said, we need to get to the table and find out what we can do and what's realistic. So I'm looking forward to that. My last item here that I want to talk about as a future agenda item is that, I put an item on the agenda to talk about for people, private property owners that, potentially looking at the opportunity of providing relief for a tax holiday to be able to kind of go forward and to allow for a time period, 6 months to a year, to allow cities to basically waive fees for people, homeowners that would want to improve their home. When it comes to plan fees. So I've asked the city manager to work on that, and they're getting an agenda item together to come to the city council, which will basically quantify in dollar-wise what that would cost us to basically subsidize these fees to try and motivate our constituents, our residents, to invest in their house and to do it because they can get the fees waived for a year or some period of time, whatever the council should decide. But there's a second component that I want to put on in. It's not the same agenda item, but it's another one because as we're getting ready to do our financial planning for June, and as we get ready to have our July 1st next year budget, something that I've been really trying to focus on is, we've had some trouble in our downtown revitalization and economic development plan, but I really do want to try and move something forward. So kind of the next thought that I had is that I would like to, as a separate agenda item, take a look at waiving fees for the business owners for a year. And I've done a preliminary evaluation that says how much, fees and, whether it's permit fees, inspections, et cetera. And, let's just say theoretically that in a year when we're actually doing a lot of development and business owners that have storefronts anywhere, or even don't need to have storefronts but are investing, it might cost us $300,000 to $400,000 a year for us to provide that service. And the way that we've got it structured is we only pay for what we use because we've got a pretty good contract in place. And what I would like to do is to put on the agenda now to talk about a potential holiday for a year to incent our business owners to invest in their companies, especially in their building, whatever it is. And with that, this is something that I would think could be really important to utilize potentially some of our reserve. And the outcome of that is if we did that, partnered up with some of the local businesses like Ganal or Gemini Forest and seeing if they could offer some incentive, maybe if we can't agree to change the infrastructure on Los Al Boulevard and make the street more business friendly. Maybe we can incent the businesses to invest because with the cost of capital down right now and they're starting to loosen up on loans for small businesses, if the city was able to look at really spending money to get people to invest back into their businesses, maybe it starts from these businesses into the street and we can kind of get that going. The reason why I want to bring it up now is to be able to make sure we talk about it, bring attention to it if we're going to do it, and then cook it into the budget for the 2013, 12 and 13 coming up in July. We need a lead up to that so that it's just not something that we announce and no one takes advantage of it because they didn't know. So in this agenda item, I'd like to talk about potentially doing something like that would start July 1st. And that gives us a lot of time to see even at the council whether it's something we're interested in. And we really start to get behind the local businesses. Really a theme around, let's invest in the local businesses. Let's get these businesses to invest in themselves. Let's see if we can get Ganal and really kind of start our own economic development from a policy perspective up. And look at that and funding it through because if they do that and then they start investing money to get materials to actually make these modifications, they buy that locally. It potentially comes self-funding through point of sale. So it's just something that I would like to. I mean, it's another shot at this revitalization, economic development, and I just wanted to have a fair start on it. Those are the only things that I had. And so at this time, let me go ahead and move on to city manager comments. Was there anything that you'd like to bring up?
Actually, I do have a couple of things to share with the community.
Sure.
I know at this late hour, I'll be quick. First of all, there was an accident at Great Dane Bakery yesterday. While the windows in front of the bakery are being repaired, the bakery is open. So go get your bakery items. The shade structure at the Joint Forces Training Base pool is under construction. This is a donation by the Los Alamitos Medical Center. It will be completed at the end of January. The pool is open, operational, fully operational in the meantime, so we have that to look forward to. Another construction project, if you've driven by Laurel Park, the park is getting rehabbed as of last Friday. It will be closed for 30 days for construction and then another additional 90 days while the grass grows. This has all been approved by council, but this is a status report. It will be closed for an additional 3 months while the grass grows. The basic things that are happening there are new irrigation and new turf throughout the park. The tennis courts are open during construction. The first new Dodge Charger police car is on the road, and the second Dodge Charger and the Chevy Tahoe will be coming soon. So look for that. There is a meeting hosted by CERT in the Rossmoor Highlands, a neighbor for neighbor meeting. That is scheduled for Sunday, January 29th from 11 to 2 p.m. and it's going to be at Orville Lewis Park, right in the neighborhood. And then, I can't make announcements without talking about Race on the Base. So race on the base, February 25th at the Joint Forces Training Base. I have up to the minute registration information. We keep growing. We're up about 500 registrations at this point in time from 2 years ago, and up more than 200 at this point in time from last year. So we've still got a ways to go, over a month away. This weekend is the second of the free race clinics, dealing specifically with triathlon. But if anyone wants to learn how to compete in that race, it's free. It's at Oak Middle School. It's hosted by Recreation Community Services Department, and just call the department to register. And that's 562-430-1073. Coyote Creek, we talked about it earlier today in staff meeting. I will get an update to you in the weekly, but basically the letter from Edison was sent to the PUC today, or last week, right, Stephen? Last week. And a letter of extension from us to the RMC will be mailed this week. But I'll fill in the blanks in the weekly.
And it'll definitely be received then before the Monday's meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
So you'll overnight or whatever it has to be. I just want to
Mhm.
make sure it's there before we have our board meeting. Okay. Great.
And
Thank
that's
you.
all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Marilyn, do you have another item?
Yes, this is something that should be really fun. At the museum this coming Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Bill Jimenez, who is a certified paranormal, is going to do a show about the reported ghosts that have been talked about for years at the Joint Forces Training Base. This is all in fun. I'm not sure that I believe in all of this kind of thing, but it's going to be interesting to hear the stories. So it's a free program, anyone that would like to come, it's at 2 o'clock at the museum. And, we say, come if you dare. So everyone's welcome.
So clarification is, because there was actually a TV show that went over there and followed that. Is this the guy from the TV show?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because my kids are even talking about wanting to go and see.
Yes.
They actually do believe it, though.
Well.
So anyway, great. Thank you. If there's nothing else, anybody have any other comments? We're going to go ahead then and adjourn to the next meeting. It's just scheduled for Monday, February 6, 2012. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.